Number 10. Deadly Genesis. We can talk about different X-Men and mutant teams here, but I'd also like to touch on some of the rosters as well that you may have forgotten about. This one might be due to selective memory loss, or it could just be because you haven't read the story yet. We are talking here about the X-Men Deadly Genesis limited series, which revealed the next team sent into Krakoa after the X-Men team we know went missing. This team wasn't necessarily a bad one at all. In fact, all of these mutants are kind of super powerful, but they were all basically introduced in this short series, which didn't really help to make us care as much about them as we could have. All in all, this story just had a very early 2000s feel to it. Not that that's a bad thing. The Deadly Genesis X-Men team were a group of kids that Moira McTaggart was trying to help out. She didn't even really see them as students, and then Charles recruited them and turned them into X-Men. The team consisted of Sway, Petra, Vulcan, and Darwin, who have all recently reappeared in the Dawn of X line, in case you were wondering where they made their first appearance. Number 9. Xavier's Security Enforcers. One that we might forget about every now and then is the mutant team that Bishop originally belonged to from the alternate dystopian future that he hails from. I believe this Earth is 1191, but I could be mistaken on that. Didn't even write down my Earth number. Bothers me. This mutant team is known as the XSE, which stands for Xavier's Security Enforcers. If you know Bishop well and you're a big fan, you likely know this team well, but for those who are new to the character, you might not know about this group of enforcers. The point of the team that Bishop was part of was to preserve the long-dead Professor Charles Xavier's dream, where mutants and humans could exist in harmony, living peacefully together. Bishop has even been known to wield specific future equipment, which he got from XSE, although we haven't seen them in a while. All members of the team wear their mutant tattoo brands like a badge of honor, and the members have included Randall, Malcolm, and Bishop's sister Shard, among others over the years. Before we hop into our number 8 spot, I just want to thank all of you for being here and give you a quick reminder to click that like if you are enjoying this video. It really does help us out. Number 8. Nasty Boys. You might remember the original villainous Marauders team, but do you remember Mr. Sinister's Nasty Boys? Don't worry if you have, because I will never let you forget. Well, both the Marauders and Nasty Boys teams are villainous teams. I couldn't have an obscure mutant team list and not seize the opportunity to remind you all of the Nasty Boys, so here we are. I also just love this name for the team. I personally always read Mr. Sinister with like the most outlandish, flamboyant, yet manipulative pseudo-English accent, so for me it's very fitting that he decided to name his team this. Nasty Boys, so perfect. It fits perfectly with the voice that I have for him in my mind. The Nasty Boys were the team that came after the Marauders. Instead of Gambit being involved in the team, Multiple Man was the generally heroic mutant who got involved. Originally, the team saw Ruckus as leader, with Slab, Gorgeous George, Ramrod, and Hairbag making up the roster. Gorgeous George even resurfaced in Dawn of X more recently. Yay! I might be the only one, but I'm still kinda hoping that the Nasty Boys as well will make a return. Bring them back. Bring them back. Number 7. Outback. When it comes to X-Men rosters as teams, one of the best but shortest running roster is the Outback team. This era for the X-Men team lasted less than 25 issues, but was still so good that people still talk about it today. Now, if you missed this one and you've never heard of it, it's one that you actually probably should read. Not one of my silly points, more one of my serious and beloved forgotten teams on this list. The team started off in issue 229 of Uncanny X-Men, with Storm, Wolverine, Rogue, Colossus, Dazzler, Longshot, Havoc, and Psylocke on it. We'd also see Jubilee introduced during this roster's time together. The Outback team is noted as being one of the best rosters for the X-Men when it comes to having a group who truly feel like outsiders. Also, you get to enjoy the Inferno story in this run, which is bizarre and magical, so you're welcome for that. Number 6. X-Corp. No, I'm not talking about the X Corporation, which has yet to come out but is still coming our way. Thank goodness. I thought that book was going to be firmly cancelled, but fortunately it has been revived. I'm so ready for X Corporation, let's go. When we talk about X-Corp, we are talking about Banshee's team. He formed this team after Generation X disbanded, and most of the team were composed of that era of mutants. This team was made up of former villains turned heroes and was created to act as a police force basically for the mutant community. Joining Banshee were the Blob, Avalanche, Fever Pitch, Jubilee, Husk, and M, aka Monet. The X-Men team actually did not approve of this team's creation and actually attempted to get Banshee to disband it. In the end, Mystique infiltrated the team and liberated its members, especially the villains, who were being manipulated into behaving heroically by Mastermind under Banshee's orders. Number 5. Orchis. If you didn't already know me to be a big Marvel X-Men fan, then this list should solidify that as a thing for you. Yes, it is definitely a thing. I love the X-Men. Orchis is the new big bad for mutant kind introduced originally in the House of X series. House of X and Powers of 10 were the series that launched into this new wonderful X-Men line with Jonathan Hickman at the head, Dawn of X. Orchis is designed to be kind of the ultimate mutant enemy. With mutants coming together and putting their differences aside, it also inspired their enemies, and even allies in some cases, to become wary of them and do pretty much the same. Orchis comprises multiple organizations, each comprising different percentages of the organization, including S.H.I.E.L.D., SWORD, Alpha Flight, Hammer, Hydra, AIM, Armor, and Strike. When I did that, I almost lost my ring. Oh my goodness. Orchis's goal is to monitor and prevent the potential extinction of humans on the planet, and they see mutant evolution and advancement as a threat to that goal. Number 4. Horticulture. Horticulture have to be some of my favorite of the newest villains and villain groups to surface. They are a group of elderly women and botanists who are focused on preserving the planet, focusing on returning it to a more pristine state. In other words, they want to make sure people stop messing everything up by taking control of everyone's food source, in essence controlling plant life and crops, in order to decide who gets to live and kinda who gets to die. As of right now, there are 4 women who are part of the group that we know of: Lily, Edith, Opal, and Augusta. They also made a brilliant and hilarious appearance in the limited Empire X-Men series, which, by the way, if you haven't read, is pretty hilarious and great, and I do recommend it. You don't really have to read Empire to enjoy it either, you just need to know the general plot of that event to enjoy the story of this 4-issue series featuring my fave new villains, Horticulture. Number 3. White Sword. White Sword was one of the mutants who was part of the original mutant nation of Okara, which Apocalypse and his wife Genesis ruled. He was one of the leaders who was sent along with his army of 100 champions to defeat the Amenthi who attacked. He was believed to have been victorious, but was also lost to his people as a result. A healer capable of resurrection, he would revive his army daily to fight the Amenthi horde the following day. It's said that this drove the White Sword somewhat insane, and when he later ran into his own people such as Genesis, who herself had been sent out with a mutant army under her command, he saw even them as his enemy and he attacked, defeating Genesis. He will be one of the champions to fight on the side of Arakko opposing Krakoa in the Ten of Swords tournament. He also happens to look similar to Apocalypse, but with different armor. Maybe you don't see that, but I definitely see that. Number 2. The Viscora. The Viscora are a mysterious alien race that made a brief appearance in Cable Volume 4 Issue 5 as part of the Ten of Swords event. We run into them on the Sword headquarters space station known as Peak 7. It seems the Viscora swiftly invaded Sword's orbital HQ, and within 10 minutes had pretty much decimated almost the entire crew. We know this from the log featured in the issue. Those few surviving crew had no other option but to completely shut down the station's power in order to prevent the Viscora from progressing any further with their invasion. To prevent anyone from potentially awakening the station or the Viscora, they didn't send out any SOS calls at the time of powering everything down, and essentially just kinda disappeared. Opal Luna Saturnine was the one who compelled Cable and his parents, Marvel Girl and Cyclops, to awaken the station once more. Though her motives remain unknown, it's speculated that she wanted to harm the family to help prevent Cable and possibly all mutants from being able to enter the Otherworld tournament, although her motives are still very foggy in my opinion. The Viscora seem obsessed with cleansing, dissecting, and learning of any alien life forms. In other words, they pretty much want to kill everyone. Number 1. Donald Blake. Thor issue number 9 of the newest run from 2020 starts off a new story arc titled Prey. At the end of the issue, we see the return of Donald Blake, a former persona of Thor's who basically became his own person but then was trapped in a hell dimension. Driven mad, Dr. Donald Blake has returned, escaped his prison, and seems to be looking for revenge on all of the gods. This is a refreshing and interesting take on an old character, bringing him back as a villain now. It's what I really find intriguing about this new run on Thor, which I thought was maybe going to be trying to take us back to ones with, you know, the title character himself and everything else, and yet we have amazing things like this happening. Donald Blake returning to us not as the same old ally, but as a villain. Shortly after escaping, Dr. Blake is confronted by Loki, so that's the god that he deals with first. Surprisingly, Blake makes quick work of Loki, vowing that he will no longer be a refuge for any god ever again, and they will no longer be able to hide from him. Thor, I think he's coming for you. I think so. Number 10. Tempest. Eva Bell first made her appearance in All New X-Men issue number 1 in 2013. She could be viewed as one of the most useful of the New Mutants to surface in the past decade, because her abilities are so based in something that the X-Men and mutants and, well, sort of all of Marvel seem to get involved with more often these days: time travel. Tempest has chronokinesis powers, which allow her to alter the way time moves around her in the area she is in, and allow her to create time bubbles which she can send through time for a short while, and even time travel fully herself. She has been referred to as near Omega level, and honestly, with a bit more control over her powers, I could see her making the Omega list any day. Tempest is also one of the House of X's The Five, and helps to bring deceased mutants back to life by speeding up the growth process within their eggs. It sounds creepy when I say it like that, but more will be explained. Number 9. Morph. I really like this mutant because with him they found a way to make shapeshifting abilities unique again, and somehow make them even weirder and cooler at the same time. Morph, aka Benjamin Deeds, is able to shapeshift into those he spends time with, slowly, over time. So the more time he spends with you, the more he starts to resemble you. He really is the embodiment of what it feels like to live in somebody else's shoes. As he fuses with you, he takes on your look, your voice, and also exudes an energy that encourages you to trust him, to feel relaxed and calm in his presence. I just think this is such a cute way to imagine shapeshifting, and a useful way to use it as well, potentially calming your target into submission as opposed to causing them harm. It's kinda like the anti-mystique of shapeshifting, I think. Number 8. Gold Balls. Gold Balls recently became a very important mutant in the comics. He is part of a group known simply as The Five on Krakoa. Together he and Proteus, Elixir, Hope Summers, and Eva Bell can help to bring forth new life, or well, sort of old life really. They are able to resurrect any mutants who have been lost by cloning them, and with the help of X, restoring their previous memories so that in essence they kind of are the lost mutant returned. Gold Ball's power is similar to Minoru Mineta of My Hero Academia. Instead, however, Fabio Medina produces gold balls, hence his name. Originally these were simply seen as balls of various sizes which could be launched in a sort of an attack mode. Later it was discovered that they were actually infertile eggs, and with the help of the Five would become the home of unborn resurrected mutants who had fallen. Gold Balls made his first appearance in Uncanny X-Men Volume 3, Issue number 1.
And coming in at number 7, Volthoom, Earth 15. Making his first appearance in Green Lantern Annual Volume 5, Issue 1 back in 2012, also known as the First Lantern. So like I said, he's from the future on Earth 15 in the year 3079, and after his world was on the brink of destruction, him and his mother used the newly discovered emotional electromagnetic spectrum, which is a multiversal force powered by all life in the multiverse. Then they used this power to create the Travel Lantern, and then Volthoom left to find safety while his mother stayed behind and unfortunately, in superhero fashion, died by being crushed by a building right as he left. So he traveled for weeks through space and time in desperate hopes to find something to save his home world. So he goes to Earth 17 and uses the spectrum to resurrect plant life. Cool, not much more to do here, let's go next. He tries Earth 47, then they use the spectrum to create nice music. Cool, and next he went to Earth 3 where he met a sorcerer named Mordu, in which he creates a power ring out of a piece of his soul. And that ring of course being called the Ring of Volthoom. He finally found Earth 0 where he acted as the Law and Order. Eventually Volthoom's mind was corrupted from the spectrum and he becomes insane and tries to kill the Malthusians, who had created a great heart battery beforehand. Not cool Volthoom, more like not cool Tomb. Nah, I tried. And number 6, Daniel West, Reverse Flash. Making his first appearance in the Flash Volume 40, Issue 0, Daniel West is a classic speedster. His costume is the first thing you notice when looking at this version of the Reverse Flash. His suit is made partially from the monorail that he crashed into, so it acts like an armor around him, which is super cool looking. It was merged to him. So after an accident where you get super speed, becoming a supervillain isn't too hard of a lane to slip into, especially when your mother dies while giving birth to you and your father is an aggressive alcoholic. Yeah, Daniel's upbringing is super tragic, so he uses the Speed Force in attempts to go back in time and prevent this from happening at all costs. So if anybody has to die in the meantime, so be it. His goal is to take out other speedsters and use their Speed Force to help him achieve his goal. Sad times indeed. Number 5, William Cobb, the Talon. He made his comic book debut in 2011 back in Batman Volume 2, Issue 2, and the Talon is an assassin for the Court of Owls. who claims to have killed several Wayne family members, including Bruce Wayne's great-great-grandfather, Alan Wayne. Not a bad resume. He began his early days juggling baseballs on the street just to get by, and after his father had passed away tragically while building a bridge for Cameron Kane, he began his early days juggling baseballs on the street just to get by, after his father had passed away tragically while building a bridge for Cameron Kane. So he would earn some money and then sneak it into his mother's purse. What a gem. And then one day somebody was watching his act and then got pickpocketed. So William Cobb noticed and hucked one of these baseballs at him, saving the day. The man offered him a job at a circus as a thank you. So he started using knives instead of baseballs to amp up the act, keep it fresh, and eventually met his love Amelia back when he returned to Gotham. Now he was a celebrity though. Amelia's father didn't like the two in love, so he told William to beat it. Amelia at this time was actually pregnant. Ruh-roh. So Cobb joined the Court of Owls and became one of the Talons, and went back to Amelia's house to kidnap his own son. His son ends up becoming the Gray Son of Gotham, John Grayson's father. Number 4, Oblivion. Making his first appearance in Green Lantern New Guardians Annual Issue 2 back in 2014, Oblivion is made of Kyle Rayner's rage, fear, and anxiety. He's the physical form of all of those traits and even believes himself to be Kyle Rayner. He stayed in his apartment and even tricked Carol into thinking that he was the real deal. So he has powers that allow him to shapeshift, teleport, he can project vast amounts of energy that match a white lantern, and he can also create illusions of people and objects. So one day Oblivion teleported Carol and himself to Arizona, where he used his powers to alter all the people in the buildings there. He's kind of annoying like that, Number 3, Gotham Girl. AKA Claire Clover. She made her debut in DCU Rebirth issue 1 in 2016. Her and her brother Hank both traded in years of their lives for superpowers. So they can either live 2 years at Superman's level, or live a few hours with godlike levels, which is really interesting. If you had this power, which way would you go? Let us know in the comments, because I'm curious. So Batman ended up taking Claire and Hank under his wing, but unfortunately, Psycho Pirate's mind manipulation ended up getting the better of him. Hank ended up using all of his life force just to defeat the Justice League. After his death, Claire wasn't doing too well. Batman even told her his real identity and how he sometimes likes to talk to his dead mom as well. How lovely, what a nice little bonding moment. Now, by the name of this list, you won't be too shocked to hear that she had also been secretly working with Bane to break Batman on a psychological level. Not cool. And number 2, the Court of Owls. I mentioned them earlier, so I figured since they're gonna be in the new Robert Pattinson Batman flick coming out in 2022, they're worth a bigger mention. So since the New 52, the Court of Owls have picked up steam. Created by Scott Snyder, this new secret society looks as cool as they are. They're an ancient group that has been secretly controlling Gotham for a while. Like a while. They even go back to some early Bruce Wayne days, hence them being part of the Matt Reeves Batman plot coming up. Their top assassin, of course, being the guy I mentioned earlier, Talon. So he ended up attacking him, and then Bruce decided to do some detective work, discovering the secret society. So he finds out that the Court of Owls actually has secret headquarters in every building made by the Wayne Trust. Sneaky. Gotta love secret cults. And finally, number 1, Mr. Bloom. One of the coolest looking guys on this list, Mr. Bloom made his debut in 2015 in Batman Volume 2, issue 43. He began his journey by stealing high-tech seeds. Yep, you heard me, I said seeds. Makes sense why he's got the flower on his face. It goes well with the terrifying Slender Man look. I wonder what it smells like. Probably death or daffodils, one of the two. So after he took these super seeds, he got some superpowers, super strength, elasticity, hence the lankiness, and he can project flames and ice from his hands. Pretty neat. So he decides to give these seeds to a select few who desire superpowers. The only cost? Their life. I think next year for Halloween, I'm gonna go as Mr. Bloom. Either him or Orlando Bloom. One of the Blooms for sure, I'm just not sure which one, Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Element Woman. Making her debut in Flashpoint Volume 2, Issue 1, she was actually recruited by Cyborg to help prevent an upcoming war between Wonder Woman, Amazon's crew, versus the Aquaman and Atlantean's crew that was destroying Europe. So she tries to help out, but Shade, the changing man, uses his M-Vest to reveal that Element Woman, Emily Sung, was insane. Awesome, okay, cool, way to expose our girl. So Cyborg recruited Emily and other metahumans, and the Justice League figured Element Woman was too powerful to not include in the fun. Come on, you gotta get her in there. Alongside Firestorm and Atom. Like Metamorpho's power, Element Woman could transform into any of the elements found in the human body, and then craft them how she pleases. She uses the metal to change your hair colors, which I wish I could use. Although my hair is already going white. That's great. And before we continue on, guys, if you could go ahead and toss us a thumbs up on this video, because it does help us out quite a bit at the studio. Thank you so very much. You guys rock. Now back to some other Justice League members. Number 9, Mera. Making her first appearance in Aquaman issue 11, Mera has taken the place of Aquaman temporarily. See, Mera was on her way to break through the Crown of Thorns, the invisible magic barrier that had surrounded Atlantis. But before this though, she had thought that Aquaman had died by Atlantean soldiers. She even mourned him at the Curry Lighthouse. So she started attacking the Crown of Thorns. She was pissed, makes sense, and while doing so, she actually created these massive tidal waves. So the Justice League came in, and after the battle, she started to calm down. She realized she was putting like a lot of civilians at risk with these tidal waves. Like one time I had a temper tantrum at the zoo when I was like 3. Straight up just hucked my ice cream cone and it went right over some guy's sneakers. Poor dude. I'll never forget my actions. Horrible, horrible actions. Batman didn't approach me and ask me to be on the Justice League afterwards, but Mera, she was lucky enough to get that, so. She then served as the temporary replacement for Aquaman. Not a bad gig. Number 8, Martian Manhunter. Your kind will fail, your kind will always fail. Those are some of the last words spoken by Martian Manhunter in Final Crisis 1 after he gets trapped in a prison. See, he had originally went there to be undercover as John Jones and regularly would report back to Batman, right? That's a pretty good crew. Then the villains broke free and he was left behind. Not good. So Human Flame had given the villain Libra instructions to kill Martian Manhunter. So Libra went and stabbed Martian Manhunter with a staff in front of the entire secret society of supervillains, and upon his death, he returned back to his Martian form. And in his final moments, he still managed to do his job and send a message back to the Justice League. That's a devoted member right there. And they held his funeral on his home planet Mars with Superman giving the eulogy. So when I die, hopefully Superman will do mine. Now it's probably gonna be someone boring. Sorry, my family's boring. You can find his Justice League time between Justice League Volume 2 and issues 6 and 7. Pretty sweet, check it out.
Number 7, Perpetua. Perpetua is an old evil, but one that we didn't know of in the comics until 2018 when she was first introduced in Justice League Volume 4, Issue 8. Perpetua quickly became known as one of the greatest evils the universe, or multiverse really, had ever known. She was the creator basically of all things and the mother to the Anti-Monitor, World Forger, and Over-Monitor. Billions of years ago, she was betrayed by her own children and trapped in the Source Wall along with her devastating and deadly creatures, the Apex Predators, a vicious combination of Martians and humans. Yeah, she really old. Perpetua was the one ultimately responsible for the crisis in the DC universe, as it was her whisperings from within the Source Wall that brought them about. The energy allowed her prison to weaken, cracking a little more each time there was a crisis, which was how Perpetua planned to escape. She was eventually freed when the Source Wall broke as a result of Barbatos and the Batman Who Laughs actions, allowing her to once more wreak havoc on the world and earn back her power so she might rebuild the universe again in her own horrifying image.
Number 6, The Kindred. Making its first appearance in the Multiversity Guidebook number 1, the Kindred is this cosmic force that appeared after the Rebirth event. Created by Grant Morrison, the Kindred is a 4-part entity, and they each represent DC lore, so those 4 being the Speed Force, Magic, Cosmic Power, and Emotional Light Spectrum. So they have a handle on pretty much any angle out there. Now, this is a villain list, so this is bad news for us, or rather bad news for pretty much any world. For starters, they take all of the energy from living creatures. That's how they come together. Nice, teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work. Also tears. So off the bat, these guys are just OP. I love the look of these celestial gods though. They each have like their own color. Even if Brian Hitch wrote them into his run with the Justice League, with destruction being the driving force, this is still kind of a villain that even I'll root for. I said it, sue me, what's up?
Number 5, Punchline. So Punchline has to be one of my favorite of the newest villains we've seen. I didn't want to like her when she was announced, especially as I thought she was going to be like some new, younger version of Harley Quinn, which I didn't really think that we needed. But then I met Punchline, and I gotta say, I like Alexis. She's okay by me. Punchline's real name is Alexis Kay, and we learned her backstory in the Joker 80th anniversary special. She sought out the Joker believing that his ideology matched or at least suited her own. She has displayed some pretty sweet chemistry and toxicology skills, making Batman his own special version of the Joker venom. How nice. Which tormented him through most of the Joker War story and has proven how deadly she can be with her stilettos when she managed to land a life-threatening hit on Harley Quinn. I really hope we get more Punchline in the near future. I was pleasantly surprised by how different and interesting she is in comparison to Harley Quinn, and I also just love her character design. Punchline first appeared in Batman Volume 3 in issue 89.
Number 4. Eradicator 2. With that name alone, oh boy, you already know what's coming. The Eradicator 2 was created, of course, after DC's Rebirth with the absence of the original Eradicator. Another big bad version was bound to show up. I mean, we expected it. So of course, this is the newer version of Eradicator from the 80s comics. But the best part is that he still has the 80s look. He's got the retro, badass glasses, which are such a nice touch, by the way. Just by looking at this guy, you can tell he's the coolest. Created by General Zod, this AI ended up taking on the physicalities of Superman, hence the everything about him. So when this badass AI is close to a yellow sun, he gets powered up real good. I'm talking the usual super strength, stamina, flight, speed, and he's basically invincible. A cool but scary power that he also obtains is that of energy manipulation, because he's made of course, pure energy. Eradicator wasn't used too much, but I feel like Eradicator 2, since his first new appearance in Superman Volume 4 Issue 2, at the very end we see his rebirth, and it's beautiful. Once the Kryptonian gene is detected back on the Fortress of Solitude, energy forms all around the room. There's an ID badge, some glasses, and then bam, all this mixed into one. You get this bright pop, and his opening line being, "We are here, we will save you too, Kal-El." And it's sick. He's like basically Terminator with a cape. He's got the look, there's this energy coming from him. I would love to see this guy go head to head with Henry Cavill. I mean, maybe we'll get more of a dark alternate version with the Snyder cut of the Justice League, but fine, that'll have to do in the meantime. For now.
Number 3. Clown Hunter. Clown Hunter is just a kid who stepped up to the plate when it came to taking back Gotham during the Joker War. Seeing his neighborhood being ravaged and attacked by the Joker gang, and having lost his parents to the Joker, he was inspired to start cracking skulls, which is exactly what he did, defending the innocent with a baseball bat with a batarang attached to it, to kill any clowns that crossed his path. His true name is Bao Pham, and at the end of the event, he was confronted by Batman himself, who suggested that he seek help and speak to a therapist. He also offered to mentor Clown Hunter, but warned him that he would not tolerate the teenage Bao killing anyone else, no matter their crime. Clown Hunter seemed interested in getting help, but only after his work was done. Clown Hunter first appeared in issue 96 of 2016's Batman.
Number 2. The Batman Who Laughs. Bruce Wayne, but from Earth 22, is a touch different than the one that we know best. The Dark Universe is a very special and very vast place filled with alternate versions of characters, but one of the most notable has to be the Batman Who Laughs. Making his first appearance in Dark Days, The Casting, this Bruce Wayne has, well, of course, similar origins that we're familiar with. Parents were murdered, became a crime-fighting bat, protects Gotham, all the good stuff. But this Joker changed his path up. Joker began murdering everybody in Gotham. He bombed a hospital and then shot the parents of the kids. Like, he's twisted, and he's also dying at the same time. He's dying from the chemicals that made him become the Joker in the first place. So of course he wanted to take everybody out with him. So when Batman stepped in and killed him by breaking his neck, the toxins from the Joker were inhaled by poor Batsy, causing this to happen. So a day later, he's joined by Batgirl, Nightwing, Red Hood, Red Robin, who were training in the Batcave, and then Batman then shot all of them. And then this is just the beginning. This insane clown Batsy is terrifying and entertaining in all of the right ways.
Number 1. Ghostmaker. We don't know a lot about Ghostmaker yet. He first appeared in Volume 3 of Batman, the current run, in issue 100 as a mysterious figure. And so far, he stayed that way. We'll likely see more of him in issue 103, but so far we know he's not as new as he might appear. In fact, in Batman issue 102, Batman seems to recognize him, leading many to speculate as to which old rival Ghostmaker's true identity could actually be. We do know that he's here to challenge Batman for Gotham and to provide the people with an alternate option when it comes to choosing their hero for their city. He also comes with a ton of tech, and at this point is probably going to quickly end up being better equipped than Batman himself when it comes to gadgets, as Bruce just lost all of his fortune to Lucius Fox. Well, he gave it away, that is. And Lucius is out of the Batman game. Bruce is on his own this time around when it comes to equipping himself, and he only has his own ingenuity and the help of the Bat fam to back him up.
And at 10, Atomica. After Earth 3 was destroyed by a mysterious force, Atomica is able to escape to Earth Prime. Atomica intended to join the Justice League, and got into their ranks by defusing a bomb planted by the Atlanteans in their war against the surface world. Atomica was recruited into the Justice League as the Atom, but she actually had a secret agenda. She was preparing to rescue the crime syndicate. She used her hacking skills to detect the presence of a virus contained inside the body of Victor Stone, and planned on using it in her mission. When the Justice League and Justice League Dark fought in Kahndaq over Pandora's box, Atomica revealed her true motives and used the virus she discovered to shift Victor's cyborg parts away from him and make them form the grid. Pandora's box was then opened and revealed to be a portal that the crime syndicate was able to use to come to Earth Prime. Then they invaded the Earth, and everyone was trapped in the Firestorm Matrix, so yeah. And at 9, Element Woman. Emily Sung can transmute her body into different compounds, gaining her powers under unknown circumstances. And when the League was said to be defeated during the war between America and Atlantis, Cyborg recruited a group of metahumans who would be useful. Element Woman was one of them. During the meeting that came after, the Big Seven agreed that there was nobody else like Element Woman and that she was going to be very useful, so they recruited her along with Atomica and Firestorm. When the crime syndicate invaded Earth Prime, she was trapped inside the Firestorm Matrix along with the other heroes. When she was released along with everyone else, her powers had interacted in a weird way with firestorms, and she was teleported a random distance away. The ordeal left her scarred, and it didn't help when the members of the League didn't come looking for her. And at 8, Mira. Mira joined as a temporary replacement for Aquaman. The Crown of Thorns, a massive magical barrier, had been placed around Atlantis, trapping Aquaman. And after a battle with the League about breaking it down, Batman had offered that she join. During her time with the League, she had several adventures on the surface world. She was in the battle with Shirak and faced the time-displaced descendants of the League. This caused her to meet with a possible daughter from the future named Serenity. She joined in Justice League Volume 3 number 24 and still remains active to this day. She has helped the League several times since then, and the League has helped her in return. Typically not all at once, just a couple of members, like when she called on Superman and Wonder Woman to help hold the villain known as Eel hostage because she was sick and couldn't do it with her powers.
Number 7, Supergirl, Kara Zor-El. Much like how Krypto was sent to Earth, Superman's older cousin, Kara Zor-El, was also sent to Earth. She was sent from the dying planet Krypton to protect Clark Kent. Well, rather Kal-El, but of course, as fate would have it, she was knocked off course by the explosion of her home planet. What a bummer. So she ended up in the Phantom Zone, of course. Now in the Phantom Zone, you can stay there for decades and not age at all. Your skin would look fantastic. That's actually what Kara did. So after her pod finally escaped, she landed on Earth and soon joined the Danvers family. Now of course, if you want to see her in action, you can catch the hit show Supergirl. Only 3 different actors have played her, the most recent and current run being portrayed by Melissa Benoist. So if you start binging it now, you can actually probably catch up for when the 6th and final season airs sometime next year when the world starts to be cool again. But if you want to start reading her from her comic book origins, you can find her first debut in Action Comics issue 252. And also, of course, the Justice League United issue 2. That's when things start cooking. Number 6, Fire. Beatriz da Costa is a founding member of the Justice League International. She made her first comic book appearance in DC Comics Presents issue number 46. She started off as an amateur model, like we all do, in Brazil, and then became a showgirl and stage performer, and eventually she became an undercover secret agent for the Brazilian government. That's usually how it happens, right? I mean, I'm trying the exact same career path right now. I'm hoping Brazilian undercover agent is next. Checking my emails. So close. One of these missions, she was actually exposed to a pyroplasmic explosion. See the name Fire, you know, it's starting to make more sense now, eh? I gotcha. This caused her to obtain some superhuman powers, and at first sported the name Green Fury. And before the Justice League, she joined Global Guardians. Then along comes the Justice League International, and her and Ice Maiden decided to go and apply for this job. This was after Black Canary's resignation, and at this point, some members were being abducted. So the Justice League took them on, sporting the new, and I would say improved names, fire, and of course, ice. Number 5, Booster Gold, aka Michael John Carter. There's the link. Picking up in Justice League International Volume 3, we find Booster Gold as somebody who craves attention, as we all do, but a leader that was controllable nonetheless. So he became a superhero after saving the life of President Ronald Reagan, using technology from the 25th century. Yeah, that ought to do it. Of course, after doing something like that on your first mission, you would get a high from that fame. Like, you can't top that, come on. Naturally, he became quite wealthy, and that is until his manager stole like all of his money. You gotta ride solo, people. Keep your stuff in your mattress. Keep your cash in your mats. I don't know, weird. In the revamped Justice League International in the late 80s, Booster was a main member. He got close with the Blue Beetle, Ted Kord, and they did some pretty funny missions together. Booster's suit was destroyed while fighting Doomsday, so good guy Ted Kord comes in and builds him a new suit. What a good friend. I don't have friends like that. Then while battling Overmaster, he lost that suit, and this time he also lost his arm. In comes good guy Ted Kord again, this time a new cybernetic arm to go along with it. I want a cool suit. All my friends give me are excuses. Number 4, Simon Baz. He's a Lebanese American born in Dearborn, Michigan. After seeing the attacks of the World Trade Center on the news when he was just 10 years old, he and his family faced ostracism because they were Muslim. His sister was even getting bullied and physically attacked, so Simon would have to intervene. Now, as the years went on, he got an engineering degree and shortly after that, a job at an automotive plant. After the financial crisis hit, he was let go and had to resort to stealing cars and then reselling the parts just to make ends meet. He was also a great street racer and even made some dough that way as well on the side. Accidentally stealing a truck filled with explosives, Simon ends up getting arrested and they suspect him as a terrorist, sending him over to Guantanamo Bay. Ignoring his pleas of innocence, Simon was nearly tortured. It was then a Green Lantern ring popped into the room to save the day, removing him from the facility. And what makes Simon stand out besides his strong origin story is that he has emerald sight. That's right, Simon Baz can see glimpses of the future. He also used to carry a gun with him even while wielding the Green Lantern ring. Why? Because he didn't trust a whole lot of people, obviously, and he wanted a backup in case the ring failed him, which it did a couple of times. We can find more of this reserve member of the Justice League in Justice League of America, Volume 3, Issue 5. Number 3, Captain Atom. Nathaniel Atom making his first appearance in Captain Atom Volume 2, Issue 1. Nathaniel Atom was an Air Force officer in the United States during Vietnam, and after being framed for a crime he did not commit, he was sentenced to death under the watch of Wade Eiling. Now, of course, he didn't want to be executed, so instead he was asked to be part of an experiment that had little chance of survival. I would take that risk. I'm a gambling man myself. The test is just wild. They had the hull of a crashed alien ship and wanted to see how tough it was. So they strapped a nuclear bomb underneath it while our boy Adam was still in the ship. That must be an odd waiting time. I wonder how that feels, just sitting there like, hope it works. Turns out it felt pretty badass considering the alien metal melted to him, and then he shot forward in time by 20 years. Sweet. So Captain Atom, a rather fitting name, joined the Justice League and eventually served as the leader of the Justice League Europe. We can find him front and center in Justice League International, numero 7. Go check it out. Number 2, Steel. John Henry Irons, making his first debut back in '93 in Adventures of Superman issue 500. And after the world lost Superman, John Henry Irons tried to take the Man of Steel's place by using a high-tech suit made of armor. Then once Superman came back, he was simply just referred to as Steel. I mean, OG Man's back in town, you gotta change the nickname. Batman made the conclusion that the Justice League was full of brawn and needed a bit more brains. And boop, Steel has entered the chat. Steel crushed it too. He helped defeat Prometheus and the Queen Bee, and he led the reserve team as well, which included Huntress, Barda, Zuriel, and Plastic Man. He kills it. And finally, at number 1, we have Dr. Light, Kimio Hoshi. Making her first appearance in Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue 4, Kimio Hoshi was a supervising astronomer working in an observatory in Japan. She helped her co-workers as they were following a mysterious phenomenon and they were watching its path. They were actually so afraid of this thing that she had to make them leave just so she could focus and study this thing in peace. The Monitor felt threatened from the Anti-Monitor absorbing parallel Earths, of course. So he created a champion. You see where I'm going already. So he sent a beam of energy from the Vega Star down to Earth where it met Kimio. Now she obtained the powers of photonics, and the cool name came along with it as well. She was a member of the Justice League a few times, even the Justice League Europe. And following Infinite Crisis after her powers were returned, Oracle invited Kimio to join the Birds of Prey. But after she didn't make the cut on their first mission, she found her more suitable location with the Justice League instead. Kicking off the list at number 10, Dawn of the Dead. Making his first appearance in Taskmaster Volume 2, Issue 2. Okay, right off the bat, this guy rocks. I mean, look at this dude's style. Come on, he knows he's poppin'. He's a former SHIELD operative, and while he was a military advisor to the Mexican Armed Forces, he had met Taskmaster. Now, after he had left SHIELD, he got this amazing new persona, Dawn, D-O-N, of the Dead, which is my new favorite name for any villain ever. That's it. He pretends to be Mexican and was elected a governor in Western Mexico. It was there that he was trained by Taskmaster, and now he's the leader of his very own cartel that focuses on methamphetamine. Nice. So this is a wild villain. Every panel of this guy is super flashy and very dramatic. Course. He's also quite the performer. In his first issue, you see him addressing a crowd of Hannah Montana wannabes, saying that this is what real Narcos sounds like. Again, the guy from SHIELD pretending to be Mexican. Awesome. Duly noted.
And before we move on with our list, guys, if you could just go ahead and toss us a thumbs up, because, you know, it helps us a lot here at the studio. And thank you very much to everyone that has already done that. Thank you. Number 9, Macho Gomez. Macho shows up as a random villain to Deadpool in issue 32 of his 2008 series. He is basically an alien hitman who thinks he's the best. Definitely better than the earthbound merc with a mouth, Deadpool. In reality, he proves to not be as great as he thought he was. Deadpool makes quick work of him and then ends up going on a space adventure to get paid and to prove his mettle to the galaxy and the universe. This prompts an epic space opera arc where Deadpool takes over Macho's life, taking his former job and even marrying his widow.
Number 8, the Builders. The oldest race in the universe, and they actually consider themselves perfect beings. Okay, wow, we're gonna go there, eh? I see you. Yeah, okay, you're perfect. Sweet. Beyonce and the Builders. Man, that's a tough one. Here we go. They're so perfect. I mean, how do we pick between the two, you know? They worship the Mother Maker herself, the universe. The Builders created these aggressive systems to direct, shape, and control the very structure of space and time. So they think they're the sh**. There are two types of builders, the creators and Bob the Builders. No, there's creators and then the engineers. They seeded worlds for billions of years and directed the evolution of civilization. I mean, I get it, you're cool, you're old, you think y'all are the best, you're not perfect though, okay? Spoiler alert, you look like bugs. Huh? You guys look like Ultron if he was covered in cow sh**.
Number 7, Hydra Supreme. Hydra Supreme was the name Captain America took when he became evil. He only became evil, of course, because Kobik, the cosmic cube in the form of a little girl, altered reality to make him a secret sleeper agent for Hydra throughout his history. Reality was then changed so that every action Captain America, Steve Rogers, had taken up to this point was all part of a long con to take over the United States of America after gaining their trust implicitly before revealing his true colors. Fortunately, the original Captain America still existed within the Cosmic Cube, or the shards of it, and once released was able to fight against and defeat his evil alternate reality counterpart. Woohoo! But also not woohoo if you were a fan of Hydra Supreme.
Number 6, Deadpool Corps. Making their debut in 2010, Deadpool Corps are, well, they're a team of Deadpools, as you would have guessed. Their first issue, Prelude to Deadpool Corps issue 1, they are founded by Earth 616 Deadpool after the Contemplator chose him to be the one to stop this cosmic entity, the Awareness. Super aware. The Awareness does this really neat thing where it devours the multiverse consciousness. Awesome. The Deadpool Corps have a unique mind that makes them immune to it. And they ride in style, using the B. Arthur as means of transportation. Which is not a bad ride at all. I mean, I'd pull up at that. Let's go. The Deadpool Corps joined forces after Dreadpool formed an evil version of the Corps. That, of course, had out to, you know, massacre every version of himself in the multiverse. And the Deadpool Corps were short-lived, but as usual, a lot of bloody, disgusting fun.
Number 5, Assessor. Assessor is an AI who is working in tandem with Ultimatum, or more specifically, working for him. For those who don't know, Ultimatum is basically like evil Miles Morales, who was the Miles of the main continuity of Earth 616 originally. If you want to learn more about him, we actually talked about him in part 2 of this list series, so you can go back and check that out. Assessor, as a villain, is basically like a humanoid appearing Gladys from the Portal video game series. They had heroic Miles Morales brought to a testing center where they could run tests to gain in-depth information on his powers, threatening to harm his family members if he did not cooperate. Assessor does not appear to have any human emotions and only allowed Miles to escape after they were satisfied with the information they had already procured from the tests. It's unknown who created Assessor or where exactly they come from. It's all very mysterious.
Number 4, Detroit Steel. Making his debut in Invincible Iron Man Volume 2, Issue 25, we have another big badass suit guy, Doug Johnson III. a former army soldier who ended up working for Hammer Industries. He was the pilot rocking the big bad America suit. Everybody had thought that Doug was dead, and usually when this happens, it's either awful or it works out in your favor. I know from experience, you know? So Mok, breaker of faith, turned him into stone during conflict. Then, when good guy Odin restored everybody, he was of course one of them. His family, the army, and Hammer Industries still thought that he was dead though, so he decided to use this in his favor. He got his passport, returned to America, and kidnapped Sasha Hammer in order to get the Detroit steel armor back in his hands. Justine Hammer was on board with this whole plan. Obviously, she was going to blow up the armor as soon as she got the chance, right? Well, Dougie Johnny III was already way ahead of the game. He had hacked Hammer systems earlier so that it had no effect on him, which is not a bad idea at all.
Number 3. Iska the Unbeaten. Iska is the sister of Genesis, and as such is Apocalypse's sister-in-law. She is a mutant from Morocco who's fighting against our mutant heroes of Krakoa in the Otherworld tournament, intending to settle their dispute as decided by Opal Luna Saturnine, the omniversal magistrix of the Starlight Citadel, as seen in the current X-Men event 10 of Swords. Iska's mutant power is an epic one. She can never be beaten. Krakoan mutants Magic and Cable both set to testing her power prior to the tournament's start at a great feast that was held the evening before, finding them to be quite impressive. They wondered what would happen if she were to face their lucky friend Domino, and Iska assured them that whoever this Domino was, she would certainly lose. And I gotta say, after seeing Iska go to work, I think I would agree Iska's gonna probably win in a fight against Domino. Let me know what you think about that.
Number 2. Evil Deadpool. Making his first appearance in Deadpool Volume 2, Issue 44, Evil Deadpool is somebody I think we're gonna see pretty shortly on the big screen. Yes, of course, I have a theory here. So the origins of Evil Deadpool are pretty wild. So Ella Whitby, who we all remember as the British psychiatrist who's obsessed with the Loudmouth, but just how obsessed you ask? Well, I mean, she collects body parts from Wade Wilson and then leaves them in her freezer, right next to the ice packs and frozen pizzas, of course. So when Deadpool found this cool box of yuck, he tossed the parts in a dumpster. Now, Wade's healing factor is so good. How good is it, Taylor? Well, they all formed together and grew back. Ugh, imagine the smell. He ended up stealing a private jet and traveled to the States, where he ran into his other half, literally. The Tiny Legs part in Deadpool 2 was great and super funny, but what's up with his second half? Are they growing another Deadpool? I sure hope so. The evil twin thing seems to be working well. We'll watch 1,000 of those all day, every day.
Number 1. Solemn. Solemn is one of the champions fighting on the side of Arakko during the 10 of Swords event. Initially, we were introduced to him in 2020's Wolverine in issue 6, where he appeared as the perfect match for Wolverine. But although we've seen them dance around one another and even team up to take on a demon horde in hell, we still have yet to see these two battle one another. The reason why they seem so appropriately matched? Solemn is an Iraqi mutant with adamantium skin, meaning he, in comparison to Wolverine's adamantium skeleton, is on the same level of durability. As far as we know, he doesn't possess Wolverine's advanced healing factor though, but he is known for being a smooth talker, and both himself and Wolverine each possess a Muramasa blade, meaning that they would be easily able to slice each other up with their swords. Because, you know, Muramasa cut through anything. Also take your powers away. Number 10. Luminous. Luminous was actually a pretty cool new villain who seemed to really only be used for one story arc. She was one of the only cool things really to come out of the realization that Wanda and Pietro Maximoff were not actually Magneto's children as we'd been led to believe for years. In fact, they weren't even mutants. They were the product of the High Evolutionaries' experimentation, which fit more in line with their origins in the MCU, which I guess is why we changed that. No, I'm not mad about it. Not at all. It turns out the High Evolutionary had also used their genetic material to create a sister for them both, known as Luminous. She possessed both the chaos magic reality warping powers of Scarlet Witch as well as the super speed of Quicksilver, and was originally ordered by her father, the High Evolutionary, to kill her genetic siblings. She tried real hard. Number 9. Pets of Evil Masters. While the Pets of Evil Masters might not be the most impactful villains around, they are definitely some of the most adorable. These villains obviously seek to thwart the Pet Avengers, the pets of Earth's most mightiest heroes. Like their heroic opponents, the Pets of Evil Masters are exactly what they sound like, the pets of some of the most vile villains in the Marvel Universe. They are led by Doctor Doom's pet Vulture, Vulture Von Doom, and include Thori, Loki's Hellhound, and Bitey McSpidey Bite, who isn't stated to be owned by any specific villain, but is implied to be the spider that was responsible for creating Spider-Man. On Earth 616, that spider may have died, but on Earth 97161, where the Pets of Evil Masters are from, I guess that little spider lives on, seeking to wreak all kinds of havoc. And before we move on to this next part, just a quick thank you to you for sticking around watching this video. And if you haven't already, something that helps us out a ton here at the channel is clicking that like button. So do it. Click the like button, and if you did already, thank you so much for doing so. It really helps us out. Number 8. Null. While Null did first appear as a mysterious being in Thor God of Thunder issue number 6 in 2013, he wouldn't receive a full appearance with more exploration and embellishment in terms of his history until the summer of 2018. Now Null has become such a big figure that he is threatening not just Venom's existence, but the existence of all of Earth's heroes with the King in Black event that is slated to start in December. Null has come a long way since that first mysterious appearance, and it's likely he's going to aim to go even further to guarantee his place in the Marvel history books and lore for years to come. Number 7. Immortal Abomination. Immortal Abomination is the devastating monster that first appeared in Immortal Hulk issue 18. He appears to be genetic material belonging to Emil Blonsky spliced with that of Rick Jones, which gives us a really messed up version of Rick with 2 heads in a monster body. This version of Rick Jones and Abomination is also referred to as Subject B. Eventually he was put down later on in Immortal Hulk, but he is a horrifying, powerful, and emotionally painful creature for the Hulk to come up against, especially considering how close he and Rick Jones were. This version of Abomination, it should be noted, is different from the Abomination that we later come to know originally as General Reginald Fortean. The General Fortean version of Abomination first appeared in issue 19 of the Immortal Hulk series. Number 6. Ultimatum. Ultimatum is basically Dark Miles Morales from Earth 616. He grew up as part of the Rigoletto crime family, and later in his life ended up serving time in prison in place of his cousin. Although Miles Morales, aka Spider-Man, has basically been moved to the Prime Universe of Earth 616 and made it his new home, following the destruction of his original universe, the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610 and the Incursions, there was another Miles Morales who originally was from the main continuity, from Earth 616. We'll call him 616 Miles Morales, try to make this less confusing for you. That Miles Morales of Earth 616 became a villain, working in league with Kingpin, aka Wilson Fisk. 616 Miles has a scarred face and ends up becoming the villain known as Ultimatum. 616 Miles actually took that villain alias of Ultimatum and was planning on trying to send 1610 Miles, Spider-Man, back to his original universe and take over Brooklyn in the ongoing comic series Miles Morales Spider-Man. He was momentarily stopped, however, by Spider-Man himself and Prowler, who escaped his clutches. Miles versus Miles, who wins? Too many Miles! Just kidding, you can never have too many Miles Morales in my opinion. Number 5. Broo. Oh my goodness, I love Broo so much! I love Broo too much. Calm down, Amanda. So Broo has to be one of the cutest mutants on this list, just FYI. Broo is a mutant and a member of the Brood alien race. Brood are typically born with an urge to kill and consume. They do not understand compassion and empathy in the same way that humans do. But Broo was born with compassion, which actually made him a mutant of the race, and also helped him to become independent, separating himself from the hive mind and developing his own sense of self with the ability to make his own decisions. Well, you might not think of compassion as a mutant ability. For the Brood, it very much is. In fact, when young Brood are born with such mutations, they are usually deemed as a reject and killed. But due to the dwindling population of the Brood Queen allowed Brood to live. He studied at Jean Grey's mutant school for higher learning. And he wears a cute little suit. It's so cute. Never thought Brood could be as cute, but there you go. There you have it. Anything is possible if you believe. Number 4. Genesis. Genesis was created by Fantomex using the World, a research facility created by the Weapon Plus program, which had been shrunken down to portable size. Think Hank Pym's Lil Quantum Lab in the Ant-Man and the Wasp MCU film, but smaller than that. Genesis, aka Evan Sabanur, is the clone of Young Apocalypse. Fantomex created Evan to help overthrow Angel, who had become Apocalypse's Horseman of Death and sought to replace him. Evan was raised to be basically a good version of Apocalypse, what the X-Men villain would be like as a hero, if you will. Evan has already shown that he possesses some of the original Apocalypse's powers and abilities, including super strength and durability, matter manipulation, and energy manipulation. And it is likely that as he grows, he will develop even more of his abilities. Probably. Possibly. We'll see what happens. Number 3. Sprite. Not to be confused with the Eternal Sprite, this sprite is also known as Jiujing. In fact, she got her codename from Wolverine, who gave it to her in reference to not the Eternals Sprite, but to Kitty Pryde, who actually once went by the same codename. Upon having her mutant abilities manifest, Jia became determined to become the greatest X-Men ever to honor her family and her country, China. Gia's mutant abilities are tied to her appearance. She has wings and resembles a fairy. Her skin is also durable and rock-like, and her body is somewhat morphable. Number 2. Shark Girl. Shark Girl was originally Ayer dos Santos, a young girl from Brazil who one day noticed an intense craving to eat fish. This was the first sign of her powers manifesting, which eventually resulted in her becoming a mutant were-shark. She ended up enrolling in the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning, but takes weekends off to return to her home in Brazil. Her powers allow her to resemble a shark while maintaining her own mind and memories, and not resemble a shark to the point that, she can't walk. She is more of a land shark usually, part humanoid, still able to stand and walk around on her legs and also use her hands. This form also enhances her physiology, giving her increased strength and speed and allowing her to breathe both underwater and on land. She was already a great swimmer, but her mutant powers enhance her ability even more. While in her shark form, however, she is also susceptible to going into a blood frenzy, like most sharks are occasionally known to do. So whatever you do, don't bleed around her. She might try to eat you. It's not her fault. Number 1. Amy. That's right, her name's just Amy. And we're going to finish it off with a sob story to remind us of all the mutants we have both gained and lost over the years. Though with the 5 existing in House/Powers of X, maybe we'll get all those lost mutants back eventually, at some point, unless things change. We'll see. Amy was a mutant who was trapped in the Red Skull's concentration camp on Genosha. She made her first appearance in Magneto Volume 3, Issue number 9. Amy had illusion-based powers that became warped after suffering the horrors of the camp. When Magneto freed her, these powers started wreaking havoc. She ended up creating monsters and nightmares from others' fears and haunted psyches. Amy's powers allow her to create 3D constructs, and when these nightmarish constructs started to kill, it became apparent that either her or those whose nightmares she possessed needed to die in order to put a stop to her malfunctioning powers. Amy, being the angel that she is, decided to sacrifice herself, not finding much reason to live anyways, as tortured as she was. Poor Amy. Ugh, she didn't even last 10 issues. I just feel really bad for her. No. Number 10. Red Goblin. Red Goblin is the amalgamation of the Carnage symbiote, combined with Norman Osborn's Green Goblin. When you mix a blood-fused symbiote like Carnage together with the insane Green Goblin, you get Red Goblin, a pretty fearsome foe to be reckoned with. Spider-Man had to renounce his mantle to protect his family and fight Red Goblin as Peter Parker, and had to also call in backup to defeat this epic version of Norman Osborn introduced a few years back. This whole experience as well severely messed with Norman's mind, and later resulted in him believing that he was in fact Carnage, aka Cletus Cassidy, and was not at all Norman Osborn, forgetting all about that life until another mysterious villain, Kindred, gave him back his sanity. Thanks, Kindred, that's so nice of you. Number 9. Kindred. Kindred is the Spider-Man villain who was first introduced in the 2018 series of Amazing Spider-Man in Issue 1. Kindred itself is a demon from hell who used to be human and seems to have had a close relationship with Peter Parker in life. However, what we didn't know for a long time was just who Kindred's true identity was. We simply knew the villain wanted revenge on Pete and on Norman Osborn, and that they had demonic powers in addition to having 2 pet centipedes, which Kindred often uses to assist them and do their bidding. Recently, Kindred's true identity was revealed to be that of Harry Osborn, but some fans are still hesitant to take this reveal at face value, believing it could be a misdirect and that we may still not yet know Kindred's true identity. So many people have so many theories. And before we move on to our number 8 spot, just a reminder, if you love us like we love you, show it to us by giving this video a thumbs up, and thank you for doing so. Number 8. The Griever at the end of all things. So I always want to call this villain the Griever at the end of the universe, but that must be because I'm a huge Hitchhiker's Guide fan, and that's just bubbling back to the surface in my mind. But it's not the Griever at the end of the universe, it's the Griever at the end of all things. The Griever at the end of all things was a new villain who showed up and seemingly killed Molecule Man, proving how powerful and scary she was as early as her first appearance. I gotta say, I think her design is cool, but I'm kinda disappointed that she hasn't resurfaced in any Fantastic Four issues since her first fight with the FF team. The fight was so epic that the Fantastic Four actually had to call in a ton of backup, calling on temporary and rotating members of the team to join them, and finally revealing after the events on Battleworld and the recreation of the multiverse that they actually weren't dead as all their fellow heroes were made to believe, but were actually alive and rebuilding everything in secret. So that let that cat out of the bag. Number 7. Apocalypse's children / First Horsemen, I suppose. These kids are the ones who obviously inspired Apocalypse in the future when it came to naming and creating his horsemen thereafter. Their names are the same as those Apocalypse would normally take for his horsemen: war, death, famine, and pestilence. These children made their first appearance recently and then resurfaced once more extremely recently in the newest X-Men series. They hold a grudge against Apocalypse, who they believe abandoned his family. They blame him for such, and while you might think that Apocalypse is a villain, so who cares, right now he is aligned with the other mutants of Krakoa, and as such is actually considered mostly a good guy? For now anyways. He did do some shady stuff, so not so nice, Apocalypse. Or however we're saying your name now, Krakoan symbols with an A in the middle, however I say that in Krakoan. Number 6. Dark Carnage. Dark Carnage is like Cletus Cassidy but dead, and brought back to life using the Grendel symbiote and then turned into a towering skeletal monster that is hungry for your spine. Well, maybe not your spine specifically, but if you bonded with a symbiote ever, alive or dead, he's hungry for that spine. It's finger licking good. Delicious spines. Dark Carnage was sort of the final phase of Cletus Cassidy, who sought to awaken Null by gathering all the codices from within all those beings who had ever bonded with a symbiote. Doing so would awaken the Dark God, which was just the kind of chaotic party Cassidy was all about. In attempting to do this, he perished but was ultimately successful, as Null is now awake and headed for Venom and Earth. Cletus may be gone as a result, but the villain has died many times and returned in many different incarnations, such as this new one, Dark Carnage. I'm excited to see if he comes back again, and when he does, just which version of Carnage we'll see next. Maybe some kind of dark immortal Carnage. Number 5. Rat King. A play on the Pied Piper, this mutant villain has the power of zoopathy, which allows him to control animals using music. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Zoopathy, zoopathy, it's kind of a weird word. He is the son of the Morlock Piper, whom he shares abilities with. When it was revealed that he was controlling local animals in Central Park into doing his bidding, Nature Girl and Eye-Boy joined together to put a stop to him, freeing the animals from his control. Thus ended the reign of Rat King. Although, he's still around, just chilling in his flip-flops. Number 4. Trinary. Trinary is another technopath. Her abilities allow her to control various pieces of tech within her line of sight. Similar to Hijack, this also includes, but is not limited to, Sentinels. In fact, born and raised in India, after discovering her mutant abilities, she used them to steal money from the top 5 highest earning CEOs' accounts. She then transferred and divided that money up between all the working women of India. Is it weird that I kind of love that? Because I kind of love that. Very Robin Hood. This later led to her imprisonment, which she managed to escape. She also appeared in House of X, working alongside the team of Technopaths and Moira X, who worked on Project Sleeping Giant. Sleeping Giant was created to help monitor for the development of Nimrod tech, which would threaten mutant kinds and eventually humanity's own existence. Technopaths seem to be becoming more common in the mutant world, which I kinda love. It's like as our tech develops and grows, so too do those with powers surrounding it, who seem to be popping up more and more often. Trinary made her comic book debut in the X-Men Red series. Number 3. Maxime and Manon. Maxime and Manon are kind of like a mutant duo, so I thought I'd include them together. They're twins from the future, whose mutant powers activated before puberty, so they're kids. In the future, they attended the Xavier Institute for Young Mutants. However, they were then kidnapped and brought back to the present, where they were brainwashed by Ahab and used as evil little weapons. Scary weapons too, may I add. After being defeated, the two children were left in the care of Jean Grey. They had been good children before they were sort of corrupted, and it was believed that they could probably be redeemed. Their powers allow them together to severely mess with people's heads, telepathically. Maxime's powers allow him to manipulate people's emotions, while Manon can alter someone's memories. They both also possess some mind control abilities as well. A dangerous combination, as we saw in New Mutants Volume 3, issue number 4. If you haven't read that yet, go read it, because it's messed up, it's great. Number 2. Shade. Darnell Wade became inspired by New York superheroes, and he decided to build his drag persona around this inspiration, taking the drag name Shade. Also, can I just say that I love that Shade is wearing like a bunch of pouches like as a sash, it's amazing. Shade longed to star in a drag competition show, but her dreams were dashed when her friend Spillin' Tiana Taylor was chosen over her to compete. To add insult to injury, Tiana also spurned Shade on national television, ending their friendship. Shade returned to her apartment where the power had just been turned off, and it felt like she had, well, hit rock bottom when her mutant powers manifested. Shade's powers allow her to teleport herself and others to the Dark Force dimension. Since her introduction in Iceman Volume 4, she has taken the alias of Darkveil. Number 1. Gwenpool. Gwenpool has recently been retconned as a mutant. Due to her self-awareness of the world around her, she was able to alter her origins. In Gwenpool Strikes Back Volume 5, she uses her reality-altering powers to rewrite her own story and make herself a mutant, which Kamala Khan claimed had been the truth all along, and she had just blocked it out as a coping mechanism, making up the world of comics, which in truth was Gwen's real world. This allowed Gwenpool to move through a portal to Krakoa. Once there, she was welcomed by fellow mutants, including her ex, Quentin Quire. She even gave herself a House of X/Powers of X style character breakdown in one of the final pages of this issue. I guess we'll see if this ends up sticking, but for now at least, it seems Gwenpool has joined the mutant ranks. And what a time to be a mutant! If there was ever a time I would want to jump into that world, it would be now. Or the 90s. When of course I could have all the pouches. Give me all the pouches. That's all I want in my costume. Number 10. All-female X-Men. Oddly enough, this book didn't do as hot as expected, despite the fact that it was an awesome powerhouse team composed of all ladies. This team was first introduced in 2013's X-Men series in issue number 1, as one of the main X-Men teams, and the series was part of the Marvel Now event. The team featured Kitty Pryde, Rogue, Rachel Summers, Jubilee, and Psylocke, with Storm as the leader. This team was the first in the history of the X-Men to be an all-female team with its own book. So while it was not a commercial success, it's still an important part of X-Men history to be noted for sure. Number 9. Chuck Austin's Uncanny X-Men. At least, I kind of hope you've never heard of this one, because if you have, you probably just forgot about it after years of trying, and now I'm traumatizing you by bringing it back up. This is the team that featured Stacy X. Yeah. I like Stacy X, but I can also see why her character and this run were super problematic. Austin's run on Uncanny X-Men began in issue 410 and ran till issue 443. The problem here wasn't so much to do with the members of the team as the subject matter. Many people feel that Austin's run was hypersexual, and he also gave us the revelation that Nightcrawler's dad was Azazel, which honestly isn't that terrible, but then he also gave us the weird Draco storyline with the X-Men versus the NeoFem, which was something. It was a time. All in, this was definitely a controversial run, especially considering the relationship between Husk and Angel. The team was made up of Archangel, Beast, Iceman, Nightcrawler, Stacy X, Wolverine, and Professor X himself to start, but it would later on feature Husk, Polaris, Northstar, Juggernaut, and Havoc. Before we move on to this next spot, just a quick little reminder to click that like button if you haven't already, it really does help us out. Number 8. Children of the Atom. You might not have heard of this one because it isn't even out yet, but this is one of the new teams and books that we had expected to see earlier this year, but due to the global pandemic was delayed and is now delayed again. Originally it was moved to January of 2021, but now we aren't expected to see it till April of 2021. Boy, that is a long wait. But just because they aren't around yet doesn't mean we can't talk about them. And if you haven't heard of this team yet, you might want to keep your eye out for when their book is released. Children of the Atom is a team of new teen mutants who are basically X-Men superfans and are trained by these very famous original mutants. Technically, the X-Men team was never meant to exist in Krakoa, as was just revealed recently in the comics, despite them having their own book as part of the Dawn of X line. I know, it's a little confusing. So it'll be interesting to see how the Children of the Atom, who are being advertised as kind of X-Men sidekicks, fit in exactly. In a world where, you know, there's not really supposed to be X-Men? Well, we have yet to meet the members of this team. We do know some of them not only have similar costumes to the classic X-Men, but also have similar powers. Number 7. Hellions. No, not that Hellions. This Hellions. In fact, Empath's look in the new Hellions was a throwback to the original Hellions team outfits. Empath was also an original member of the team. Before we saw the team revived in Dawn of X, they were Emma Frost's team. Basically her version of a teenage mutant team similar to, well, the New Mutants. We're also a teenage mutant team. Every time I say teenage mutant team, I just want to say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but that's not what we're talking about. Although they are also a teenage mutant team. In comparison to the new Hellions, these Hellions were not as crazy, but were somewhat troublemakers, who had an ongoing, sometimes friendly rivalry with the New Mutants themselves. The team consisted of Empath, Beef, Bevatron, Cat's Eye, Roulette, Taro, Thunderbird, Jetstream, and Firestart. The team was first introduced in New Mutants issue number 16 in the 1980s and was disbanded in 2009 in the comics after most of them were basically slaughtered, victims of a surprise attack. The team has returned since, but the new Hellions team only shares one member of the original roster, Empath. Number 6. X Corporation. Many people may have forgotten the existence of X Corporation since the organization was destroyed and became defunct back in the early 2000s, but they are coming back, so it's a pretty good time to remind everyone of their existence. Reminder, X Corp is still a thing. This actually just happened in the comics during the Empire event when we saw for certain that Xavier had revived the X Corp and that Monet and Angel seem to be running this branch of mutant affairs. X Corp in the past has been a non-for-profit organization working to help mutants in their fight for rights in less bold ways than what the X-Men are usually up to. It also provided a place of refuge for mutants who needed it, until the global organization had their various branches targeted and blown up around the globe following the events of M-Day. X Corp will be getting their own book in the Dawn of X line, which I am way too excited about. I just want to see Angel get a moment in the spotlight, you know? Many believe the book to have been cancelled, but Jonathan Hickman actually confirmed early in December that it is still very much a go. Number 5. Matthew Malloy. One of the most powerful mutants who kinda no longer exists, but he could still exist, I guess, if writers decided to bring him back. He was basically written out of existence when Tempest went back in time and prevented his parents from ever meeting, meaning he was never conceived and therefore did not exist in present day. This had to happen because Malloy proved too strong and unstable, with his powers being strongly linked to his emotions. He emitted a blast of energy that ended up destroying most of Atlanta. He also has strong reality warping powers, telekinesis, and telepathy. He could also even manipulate matter. It was even suggested that he was beyond Omega level in the comics, so although writers have written him out, I wouldn't be surprised at his power level if he didn't find a way to return to the comics. He didn't even make it to 10 issues in Uncanny X-Men Volume 3. Still, he demonstrated such power that I feel he's really worth mentioning. You know, we might see him again someday. Who knows? Number 4. Sapna. While Sapna may have only existed in corporal form for only a short time in the comics, it's possible she could actually live on forever in Magic's Soul Sword. Sapna was a young mutant girl who appeared to have magical powers at first. This intrigued Magic, who wanted to know the extent of the young mutant's powers, and so took her to see Doctor Strange. It turned out that she actually had language-based powers, but because her powers manifested while she was in limbo, this caused her to absorb all of the magical and demonic knowledge of that realm, meaning that she could control demons and open gateways to other realms and dimensions. Magic was attempting to train her when Sapna had visions of doing harm to Magic, and that made her run away. The being that offered her help only wanted to use her, and Magic was forced to kill Sapna with her soul sword. However, this also preserved Sapna's soul within it, allowing her to live on in spirit, sort of. So she's like dead, but she's in her soul sword, so, you know. Lives on in a sword. Sounds boring. Number 3. Bailey Hoskins. Bailey is a mutant I wish we got to see more of. He is the star of the one-off, non-canon comic series X-Men Worst X-Man Ever. I say non-canon lightly because this is Marvel we're talking about, so everything is kind of canon, just living in an alternate reality. Bailey currently resides in a reality which isn't really quite established, temporarily suggested to be the alternate reality of 656, a placeholder for now. Bailey's mutant ability is self-detonation, which he can regrettably only use once, as he has no resurrection or healing powers to protect him. Well, you might think that makes him the worst X-Man ever. I would argue it is the one he chooses to use that power on and stand up against that is actually the worst in that comic series, the vile fascist mutant leader Riches. Number 2. Hindsight. While Nathaniel Carver might not appear to have the strongest power just yet, I'm certain, like most underrated powers, that with more control over his abilities, he could prove to be more useful than originally anticipated. Nathaniel, aka Hindsight, has the ability to see one's recent past upon making physical contact with them. He can also use this ability on objects, allowing him to see any psychic imprints left behind on that object, a power that Jean Grey actually also has. But one of my favorite things about Nathaniel was his fear of these powers getting in the way of a relationship that he started developing with fellow student Benji, aka Benjamin Deeds, aka Mork, who I mentioned earlier. Fortunately, love overcame fear and the two ended up together, and are admittedly adorable together. Yay! Future gay X-Men, bring them on, I'm ready. Give me all the gay X-Men. Number 1. Moira McTaggart. One amazing revelation we got from the House of X Powers of X series was the truth behind Moira McTaggart. Moira has always been painted as an ally to the X-Men, but in House of X we found out what really drew her to their cause. Although Moira has been a long-standing character in the comics, first appearing in 1975, it wasn't until recently that we discovered she was a mutant. Dun dun dun! It turns out that her power is to live her life again, allowing her to see the different outcomes of different futures and allowing her to effectively alter her own fate as well as the world's with her life choices. Her resurrection power is an odd one, and Destiny confessed to Moira that she only saw her living a maximum of 11 lives, if she played her cards right. Still, when used correctly, it would appear to be a powerful mutant ability, as you see in House of X if you read it. If you haven't read it, what are you doing? Get out of here. Number 10. Deadpool. If you talk to Wade, he'd consider himself a member, or at the very least former member, of the X-Men. He'd be wrong, but that's how he would likely see it, so for that I'm gonna count him. And there was a time, however, when he did at least appear to hold a probationary status with them, when Cyclops thought it might be better to keep a closer eye on Wilson, who wanted to join up at the time, rather than let him besmirch the name of mutants everywhere with his unchecked actions. That of course didn't last very long, but he has also been a member of the mutant team X-Force. When it comes to joining the Avengers, he's been on a few different Avengers teams. One of his most recent appearances was when he joined Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel's War Avengers in War of the Realms. He's also been a member of Steve Rogers' Captain America's all-new, all-different Avengers, and I don't really know how much more Avengery it gets than serving under Captain America. Avengery, is that a word? It's not, but it is now. Number 9. Kid Omega. Some people don't like to count the West Coast Avengers, but I certainly do. They're just so fun. Of course, one of the recruits on this team is none other than fan favorite Kid Omega, aka Quentin Quire, the character who has a habit of dying repeatedly on Krakoa currently as part of the Dawn of X line. Kid Omega joined up with Kate Bishop's West Coast Avengers at the beginning of Kelly Thompson's run in 2018. This run, by the way, is just wacky and delightful, and if you have yet to check it out yet, I highly recommend it. Number 8. Cannonball. Cannonball was recruited to the Avengers after the events of Avengers vs. X-Men. Captain America felt during those events the Avengers had in a way let their mutant friends down and could have done more to help them. In an attempt to move past this former conflict and foster more community and trust between the two superhero groups, he recruited Cannonball along with Sunspot to join the Avengers. I always feel like Sunspot makes more of a splash, so I thought it might be nice to also acknowledge Sam's appearance here as a character and often underrated mutant hero. Sam has not only worked alongside the X-Men team, but is also one of the founding members of the New Mutants team as well. Ka-ching! Number 7. X-23. While Laura Kinney may not have been part of the main Avengers team, she was part of the Avengers Academy. She joined up after the events of Fear itself, and during her time there bested Tigra in a sparring match, proving even more so that X-23 would make a deadly addition to the Avengers team someday, should they ever want to recruit her on a more permanent level. X-23, currently known as Wolverine, is a genetic female clone of Logan, created using his genetic material and that of her own creator and birth mother, Sarah Kinney. Laura was raised to be a killing machine, a skillful trained assassin, but ended up escaping the facility and company who raised and used her. Since finding Logan, her genetic father in a way, and the X-Men, she has served on multiple different heroic mutant teams. Number 6. Havoc. Havoc was one of the members of the Uncanny Avengers, composed of a weird mishmash of characters, mutants and non-mutants alike, who initially united to take down the superpowered Red Skull, now armed with the mind of Charles Xavier. Havoc joined the team in the first issue of the series, despite being a conflicting character when it came to his usually unstable alignment. Havoc has been on both sides of the spectrum, being a hero at times and a villain at others, and sometimes he just gets lost in between the two labels, like he appears to be currently in the comics, on the brink of almost losing his sanity. Poor Havoc. Honestly, so much terrible things have happened to Alex, and I just feel really bad for him. His time starting out with the X-Men was also initially pretty traumatic during the time he spent avoiding joining Xavier's school or team. However, eventually he did end up acquiescing and joining them, happy there for a time before Madeline Pryor came around and, well, corrupted him. Number 5. Black Winter. Black Winter was actually an old villain sort of made new and shiny again. Originally we came to know this cosmic evil constant as the Creeping Plague, although I do like the name Black Winter better than Creeping Plague. It was credited with being the entity responsible for the death of the cosmos prior to its rebirth when Galen was first transformed into the being known as Galactus. The Black Winter was meant to be this massive, unstoppable eldritch villain, though shortly after its full appearance in Thor issue number 4 from 2020, it was swiftly defeated 2 issues later. It's not so unstoppable. Though it did require the power of Galactus, which Thor wielded in order to destroy the Black Winter, getting a brief glimpse of his possibly perilous future in its last falling snowflake. So yeah, it did require a lot of power, I guess, to take it out, but still, it was only 2 issues. They were like, this thing, it's massive, and defeated, no probs. Oh yeah, the Black Winter is also kind of like an eldritch storm that basically erases the existence of all it comes into contact with, and it comes with bonus visions of your own destruction. Number 4. Xeno. Xeno is a mutant terrorist group who is composed of others from previous mutant hate groups. The idea is all those mutant hate groups have now unified like the mutants themselves, becoming this new group known as Xeno, which was written to be a play on the word xenophobia. Xeno managed to capture mutant Domino and use her skin to mask their own soldiers as mutants so that they could infiltrate Krakoa and massacre as many mutants as possible before the alarm sounded in the mutant nation. During their first appearance, they managed to assassinate mutant leader Charles Xavier. Though fortunately Charles was able to be resurrected following this instance, and Krakoa covered up the successful assassination to make it seem as though he was never killed in the first place. Because you know, you can't let other world leaders know that your world leader was assassinated. That's it's not so good. Number 3. Mutant Trauma Support Group. The Mutant Trauma Support Group is a new group with an age-old message to deliver to all humans who hate mutants. You are not alone. The group offers support without judgment to those who have been wronged or felt like they have been wronged by mutants. They offer no judgment, only support. No hate speech or degrading comments are allowed in the community unless directed towards mutants. The group appears to have all their revenge missions and anti-mutant gatherings organized via an online community, possibly via a social media channel or some kind of exclusive forum. They first appeared in 2020's Wolverine in issue number 4, where they targeted, you guessed it, Wolverine. Although they had their plans of vengeance cut short by an unexpected guest, it's likely that there are many more members of the group that we could run into in the future. Number 2. Annihilation. Annihilation is a dark god who possesses those who wear their golden mask. Whoever so possesses their mask is overtaken by the dark entity within it, and depending on their own strength is often destroyed by the sheer power of the god and mask itself. It is believed to be the spirit of Amenth manifested, and is also linked to the control and rule over the Amenthi demons. Without anyone wearing the mask to rule them, the Amenthi demons are revealed to be destructive and reckless, destroying anything and everything they can get their hands on without any need for a reason. The shocking revelation of Annihilation's current true identity was recently revealed in the current X-Men run in issue 14. No spoilers for anyone who isn't caught up. Number 1. Kang. Kang the Conqueror is believed to be coming to the MCU in this next cinematic phase. So while he might not be a new villain in terms of the comics, in terms of the MCU he's going to be one of the freshest we've seen. Once he shows up, that is, in Ant-Man 3, which is expected to release in 2022. Woo! 2022, that's a long way away. It is believed that the brilliant Jonathan Majors will be playing Kang, or at least one form of him, and that he'll be showing up in Ant-Man 3. And that's according to the Ant-Man 3 IMDb page. It's right on there if you look at it. The cool thing with Kang, however, is that he's a time-traveling villain who as a result has been known by many different identities and aliases throughout his history. So while Jonathan Majors may be playing one version of him, there might be other actors also playing Kang. The weird thing though with Kang is that he's a time-traveling villain who as a result has been known by many different identities and aliases. So yeah, it could be great or it could be really confusing. We've known him as Immortus, Rama-Tut, and even at one point as Iron Lad. It'll be interesting to see how Marvel and Disney aim to integrate Kang and what this means for not just the main continuity but the potential multiverse within the MCU. So many great and bizarre new villains and reinvented villains coming your way. I don't even know what to think of Kang coming to the MCU. That just seems so strange, but I also feel like sometimes the strangest choices are the best. Also, we're getting Jonathan Majors, so I feel really good about that. I guess only time will tell how that will go.
Kicking off the list at number 10. Harley Sin. Constance Brand, aka Harley Sin, is the daughter of a billionaire, so you already know she's going to be trouble. Harley Sin first came around in 2016, making her first appearance back in Gang of Harleys issue 1. First of all, the look of Harley Sin, I'm here for it. She's got that Rocky Horror Picture Show vibe, she's a badass. The second issue, titled Hit 'Em Where It Hurts, we see the tattooed badass punk put in some work. She meets Harley Quinn, and during a fun little introduction panel, we see Sin say the words, "I'm the person that's going to be killing each and every one of your useless gang." So right off the hop, she's kind of a big deal. I don't know, she's in a bad mood. So this rich billionaire father I mentioned earlier, yeah, Harley Sin's father in fact is believed to be Donald Trump, or at least he was drawn and characterized to resemble him. That plus the tattoos, drug addictions, and lust for violence, you got yourselves quite the villain. And before we move on to number 9, make sure if you guys haven't done so already to go ahead and click that like button. It helps us out a bunch here at the studio, and it's this one, not this one. Unless you're a Spider-Man, then Maybe it's that one. Go ahead and click that one.
Number 9. Grail. Grail is the villainous daughter of Darkseid and basically acts as an opposing force to Wonder Woman. The two women were born at exactly the same time, and it was prophesied that Grail, the daughter of Darkseid, and Myrna would bring about much destruction. As such, she was almost killed as soon as she was born, but her mother protected her. She proved almost right away in the comics that she was a new villain worthy of our time when she made easy work of the Justice League. She and Diana ended up facing off shortly thereafter, but their fight was interrupted. However, they would continue to clash during the Darkseid War, and likely will keep doing so, as Grail was basically designed to be the perfect foil for Wonder Woman. Grail was first introduced in Justice League Volume 2, Issue 40.
And number 8. Godspeed. August Hart, aka Godspeed, made his first debut not too long ago in The Flash Rebirth Volume 2, Issue 1. With a name like Godspeed, one can only assume the powers in which they'll contain. Super speed, which is also my favorite superpower on the low. Created by Joshua Williamson and Carmine Di Giandomenico, sorry if I butchered that name, I tried 7 times. Godspeed stands out from the rest of the speedsters because of one badass reason. He can separate speedsters from the Speed Force. Now, if you watch the CW's Arrowverse, you know what I'm talking about already. August Hart was also a detective, a former partner of Barry Allen, to be frank. And then along comes a force storm in Central City, and all of a sudden you have these godlike powers. Pretty ideal powers for a hero, and also a villain. That's right, as you would have guessed by clicking this video, he doubles as a villain on the low. So he became the Flash's partner while secretly becoming Godspeed the villain. Not cool, dude. Why did the villain move though? Well, when August's brother was murdered by a criminal, he was released due to insubstantial evidence. So August decides to confront the Black Hole organization after they had stolen property from Star Labs. He sees their symbol that resembles one at his brother's crime scene. Interesting. So while confronting him, that's when the Speed Force lightning strikes. I feel like if I was a speedster, I would just be like Quicksilver. I'd hang out in the basement, play some stolen video games. Is it really that hard to just chill out? I know you're angry, but like, it's all good. Speed walk it off.
Coming in at number 7, we've got Punchline. From Flatline to Punchline, we've got a fun little segment here. These two characters don't share much besides suffixes though. Punchline is something like a Harley Quinn stand-in, although there is more to her than that. After Joker and Harley had another one of their famous arguments, they split. This time it seemed pretty permanent, so Joker looked for a new second in command. In this search, he found Alexis Kay. She dons the requisite clown makeup, but isn't really one for jokes. Cold, cruel, and exacting, she is somewhat of a Harley inverse. In preparation for the Joker War, she oversaw the stealing of Batman's funds from offshore accounts. She beat up Harley Quinn and stabbed Catwoman, leaving her for dead. Holy moly, she really is all business. Coming in at number 6, we've got Simon Saint. What's a good story without an esoteric billionaire calling the shots from the shadows? There's always room for more well-moneyed lunatics causing doom and gloom, especially in the era we're all living in. I'm sure there's no real-world comparisons to be made here. No way. Simon Saint is a man with a plan, and that plan is to introduce a fascist police force to the city that he would have total control over. Sure, he's trying to sell it as a partnership to Mayor Nakano, but we all know who the real leader would be. Saint Industries wants to kickstart this militaristic police force known as the Magistrate, complete with robotic officers known as peacekeepers and remote drones to keep people in line. All under the guise of making sure everyone is safe, right? To really sell this idea to the mayor and the public, Saint secretly employs some folks to put fear into the heart of every civilian. A very familiar scaremonger shows up to help too, which is never a good sign. Coming in at number 5, we've got Peacekeeper 01. Let's quickly dive into this private army Simon Saint seems to be putting together for a second. There will be plenty of nameless, faceless automatons forcing the people of the city into line, but there's also got to be some extra special leaders, right? For that, there's Peacekeeper 01, one of the first sheriffs sent out by the Magistrate. This one in particular is a wicked strong augmented human, one who Batman readers have indeed met before. Does the name Sean Mahoney ring a bell? He was once a guard at Arkham Asylum, and a brutal one at that. But for a while there was no way for him to get back to work. He was the one who discovered the dead body of Bane, killed by Joker gas, and also went back to rescue some nurses, losing limbs in the process. However, Simon Saint offered him a whole new life with some prosthetic limbs to boot. All he has to do is lead the all-powerful Magistrate police force in their mission to totally take over the city. Who's gonna say no to an offer like that? Coming in at number 4, we've got the Gardener. Much more dangerous than her name suggests, this green-thumbed villain has roots deep within Batman's lore. Introduced as an eco-terrorist who will do anything to keep the world as green as possible. If doing so requires the use of weird plant-animal hybrids and destructive attacks upon important areas, so be it. Interestingly enough, this villain has connections to another plant-based Batman rival. You guessed it, the Gardener has a history with poison ivy. In fact, the two dated in college. Imagine that. These photosynthesis enthusiasts have quite a lot in common. Add in the fact that the Gardener knows about Poison Ivy's transformation that will make her into Queen Ivy, and you've got a very interesting new addition. Coming in at number 3, we've got Squeak. A member of the fascinating new group, the Unsanity Collective, Squeak is but a child. Following in the footsteps of Miracle Molly, she is a cybernetically enhanced human with a lot of spunk and gusto. This group is constantly targeted by the Magistrate, who are looking to scapegoat some organizations in their mission to create a police state. Squeak makes for a fun sidekick and a very sympathetic character. She's just trying to make it in a world that is very cold and unkind. And when Peacekeeper 01 and the Magistrate show up to take out Miracle Molly, she's caught in the crossfire. This interplay creates some very hard decisions for Batman and his allies, and leads the story in fascinating directions. While she's not the most powerful or influential character, a lot of the story moving forward hinges on this pink-haired individual. Coming in at number 2, we've got Miracle Molly. Searching for a way to live life beyond the means of what most would consider sane, this green-haired so-called criminal founded the Unsanity Collective. A group meant to allow civilians to live their lives without the weight of their past trauma, it develops technology that flies in the face of the Magistrate. Molly is the brains behind the operation, building and distributing gadgets and tools to all of her followers. Although their goals are noble, they go about their plans in ways deemed unacceptable by the powers that be, which causes a whole lot of problems, as you might imagine. However, Batman infiltrates the collective to find out more and discovers how genuine and committed Miracle Molly is. Although their actions are criminal, their hearts are in the right place. The Magistrate and in turn Peacekeepers don't like this. An enemy of an enemy becomes a friend, and Batman joins the fight in an unpredictable way thanks to the influence of Miracle Molly. And finally at number 1, we've got Ghostmaker. Oh damn. This vigilante trained with pretty much all of these same people Batman trained with, and rivaled the Caped Crusader all throughout his life. There is one major difference, however. Ghostmaker is willing to kill. In fact, sometimes Ghostmaker believes that killing is sort of an art form while fighting crime. He's all about the art when it comes to dealing with criminal elements, which is a very interesting way to go about it. His values clash with the Bat's quite often, spurring on many fights between the two. However, when a bigger threat emerges, it becomes clear that the two vigilantes must team up or be defeated.
Starting us off in at number 10, Paraxis. Debuting in Justice League International issue 2 from 2011, Paraxis was a villain introduced during the New 52. He's described as an intergalactic menace, hopping from world to world, picking out ripe planets, destroying them, and then selling their resources. A villain for the Justice League International, he was awakened from a deep sleep in space when the Signal Men, giant alien robot scouts, were activated on Earth. Paraxis is not a threat to be taken lightly either. He was able to capture the entire Justice League International team, and while they were able to break free and save the Earth from his plans to destroy the planet and scavenge it, he did manage to get away and swore revenge as he flew off into space. Moving on to number 9, David Graves. Here we have a foe of the regular Justice Leagues, David Graves, a man who was a historian and an author who was infected by a disease that paralyzed him and killed his family. So, as an author, he had written texts on Atlantis, the miracles of Fatima, and other fringe subjects. He and his family were also saved by the Justice League, which prompted him to write his most popular book, Justice League: Gods Among Men. But then his family came down with that unknown disease, for which David blamed the Justice League. He snapped, shot his doctor, and then disappeared, returning 4 years later to steal the Orb of Ra. From this, he was able to use spirits to feed off of people's misery. Graves first appeared in Justice League issue 6 back in 2012. Moving on to number 8, Nick Necro. Nick, who first appeared in Justice League Dark Volume 1, Issue 12 in 2012, was formerly the greatest mage in New York. He was a mentor to both John Constantine and Zatanna, and he was also banished to Hell. Yeah, talk about a resume. That latter bit went down when Nick betrayed his disciples on an obsessive quest to obtain the Book of Magic. He was pulled out of Hell by Felix Faust, who, alongside Dr. Mist, wanted his aid to recover the Books of Magic. Necro was also determined to get revenge on Zatanna and Constantine. This all went down in a story arc titled The War for the Books of Magic, and ended with Necro being locked up in a metahuman facility.
And at 7, Simon Baz. Simon Baz was strapped for cash, so after giving up street racing he started stealing cars. Eventually he stole a car filled with explosives and ended up getting arrested and presumed to be an enemy of the state. He was deported to Guantanamo Bay where he was nearly tortured despite his plea of innocence. That's the moment a Green Lantern ring burst into the room, deeming him worthy and removing him from the facility. After disappearing, the League found him and he restated his innocence, even allowing Wonder Woman to golden lasso him. But the ring he had used to belong to Sinestro and Hal Jordan, so it reacted violently to the contact and he fled in fear. He joined the League in Justice League of America Volume 3 number 5 as a reserve member to be called upon when the time is needed, and he is the partner in Anti-Crime 2, and at number 6, Jessica Cruz. After stumbling upon mobsters hiding a body and the murder of her friends, Jessica Cruz developed a debilitating anxiety and locked herself in a room for 4 years. During the crime syndicate's invasion, she was chosen by the Ring of Volthoom, after its owner Harold Jordan of Earth 3 was killed by Sinestro. The ring forced itself upon Jessica and took over her body and mind. Under the influence of the ring, she attacked her hometown and fought the Justice League and Doom Patrol. After Batman intervened, she was able to gain control of herself and overcome the influence of the ring. He told her that he was a victim as well, and that finding strength can overcome any fear. The Flash then called in Hal Jordan to teach Jessica how to stay in control of her ring, and under his tutelage she mastered the foreign ring. When Darkseid's daughter summoned Black Racer to kill the Flash, Jessica sacrificed herself to stop him, but in fact the entity inside the ring was the one who perished, crumbling the ring, but allowing her to become worthy of getting a new one, becoming a Green Lantern, and being assigned to work alongside Simon Baz by Hal Jordan. She joined in Justice League Volume 2 number 35 as Power Ring, then became a Green Lantern in issue number 50. Halfway through at number 5, Lobo. In DC Rebirth, Lobo was one of the villains set free by Maxwell Lord, returning him to his pre-New 52 persona. He was a part of the first Suicide Squad, but Batman eventually implants a bomb in Lobo's head and detonates it, knowing it will regenerate. When Lobo discovers that Batman did it to set him free of Max's control, he accepts Batman's offer to join a new incarnation of the Justice League to repay him. This causes him to be a founding member of the Second Justice League of America, along with Black Canary, Ray, and others. Lobo possesses strength comparable to that of Superman, but this varies from writer to writer. Sometimes he's even shown as just slightly stronger than a human. His extreme durability varies as well, but he is always shown as a ruthless bounty hunter who will complete a contract once it's taken, unless he gets a counter contract for more money. Then he takes that, which is understandable and a great way to run a business. He would be on Forbes Top 100 for sure. And at 4, Ryan Choi. Ryan Choi is the teaching assistant to Ray Palmer, aka the Atom. Ryan ended up becoming a friend to Ray, where he would talk about his superhero escapades, and working alongside him had Ryan become just as proficient with the tech as Ray himself. When Ray became trapped in a remote location, he sends a message to Ryan asking him to lead the search for him. And when returning to the lab, Ryan runs into Batman and Lobo, who wanted to recruit Ray for the Second Justice League of America. When Ryan says that Ray is missing, Batman leaves. But Lobo is so impressed with the equations that Ryan had written on the board that Batman recruits Ryan instead. After being recruited, Ryan travels to Oregon where he assists in the recruitment of the Ray, being another early member to join the Justice League of America too. Ryan is also considered a founding member. Ryan Choi was also introduced in the CW crossover for Crisis on Infinite Earths, and now it's been announced that Brandon Routh, the current CW Atom actor, is leaving the show but not by choice, so perhaps they're making way for another Atom since Brandon does play Ray and Ryan Choi is now here. And at 3, Killer Frost. The Rebirth version of Caitlin Snow seems remarkably similar to the CW version. This is probably where the show got the idea, especially when the first Killer Frost Rebirth comic starts off with "My name is Caitlin Snow." At some point before Rebirth started, she was captured and transported to Belle Reve, where she was forced to join the Suicide Squad. After reforming and saving the world from Eclipso, a cosmic entity representing the wrath of God, by absorbing a small amount of life force from all Justice League members and then blasting the hell out of Eclipso, get it? Because he's the wrath of God, so he's blasting the hell out of it. No? Okay, I'll stop. As I was saying, she defeated Eclipso and saved the world, so Batman released her on parole and recruited her for the Justice League of America too. She defeated Eclipso in Justice League vs. Suicide Squad number 6 and joined the JLA 2 in Justice League of America Rebirth number 1, and is considered a founding member as well. Penultimately, at number 2, Starman. Will Payton was a 1980s superhero. He gained the abilities of flight, super strength, slight shape-shifting, altering appearance, and blasts of energy after being struck by a bolt of energy from a satellite. However, he had seemingly died fighting Eclipso. In the 1990s, it was revealed that his fate was not what it appeared. The bolt of energy that had given him his powers in the first place was revealed to be the essence of an alien prince named Gavin. Really? You're an alien prince, but your name is still Gavin? I don't care if it's spelled with a Y, come on. Who also went by the moniker Starman. A present-day version of Lex Luthor was pursuing him for his power's secrets, so he traveled back in time and captured Peyton, bringing him back to the present and experimenting and torturing him. He gained crucial information that he then wiped from Will's memory. However, Will somehow managed to escape and found his way to that era's Justice League, joining them in Justice League Volume 4, number 14. Finally, in at number 1, Detective Chimp. The Justice League Dark Team was a first-wave title for the New 52. The team was supposed to be something emotionally darker, according to the creator Peter Milligan, who compared the characters to detectives who struggle to cope with the things they see and have to do. The story started off with the Enchantress's defeat of the Justice League, proving the necessity for a more supernatural team to assist in these kind of events. The team originally contained 17 members, but in DC Rebirth, the team was shortened to 7, including Man-Bat, Dr. Fate, Zatanna, Swamp Thing, John Constantine, Wonder Woman, the leader of the team, and Detective Chimp. I love that a monkey was able to become a Justice League member. Well, I mean, technically Justice League, but like, not really. Like, Justice League adjacent. Monkeys are my favorite animal anyway. There we have it, Nerd Squad, the top 10 newest Justice League members.
Number 10, Glenn Morgan. Glenn, or Mr. Metropolis as he is sometimes known, was a villain that New 52 Superman came up against. He ended up being targeted by both Superman, both as Kal-El and Clark Kent, due to crimes he had been involved in. After being dropped off the side of a tall building, he was forced to confess to his involvement, but managed to avoid going to prison. He spoke out against Superman as an alien threat to planet Earth, and managed to attract the attention of General Sam Lane and Lex Luthor, who then became obsessed with trapping Superman. Number 9, Super Doom. This villain first appeared in Action Comics Volume 2, issue number 9. Super Doom is a villain who was actually created by the non-powered team of Clark Kent, Lois Lane, and Jimmy Olsen, in an unfortunate partnership with the evil corporation Overcorp. Super Doom was supposed to be, for Lois, Jimmy, and Clark, the savior of humanity. They envisioned him as a hero named Superman, who would be created using a device they invented that turned thoughts into reality. However, instead, their Superman became corrupted and turned evil, and set out on a mission to destroy every other Superman in the multiverse, becoming known as Super Doom. Calvin Ellis, the Superman of Earth 23, with the help of his Earth's Lex Luthor, were the two who ended up putting a stop to Super Doom the first time around, though eventually Super Doom would be redeemed and would later be transformed into a hero. But when he was introduced, he was a villain. Number 8, Wraith. Wraith first appeared in Superman Unchained number 1 and was created by Scott Snyder and Jim Lee. Wraith is an acronym for William Rudolph's Ace in the Hole. He was introduced in the story Superman Unchained as the original Superman, an alien who was sent as a gift to Earth from an alien race as a response to a mathematical equation that Earth had sent out into space, which that alien race had intercepted. Wraith was used by the military as a weapon and tool in World War II, and continued to be used by them ever since. Wraith, however, as a super being, belonged to the US military, and of course was only loyal to the USA, and ended up turning on Superman when Kal-El came into conflict with General Sam Lane. Wraith was also stronger than Superman, who turned to the Justice League for help in defeating Wraith, which ultimately only made Wraith expand his wrath to that of the Justice League as well.
In at 7, Grail. First appearing in Forever Evil issue 8 from 2014, Grail is Darkseid's daughter. But she's also half Amazonian, having been born to an assassin named Marina on the very same day that Wonder Woman was born. What a person to share a birthday with. She was prophesied to cause great destruction under the command of the Anti-Monitor, and she is pretty darn powerful thanks to her new god-Amazonian hybrid physiology, able to use magic to dimensional travel, resurrect others, summon, corrupt the will of others, produce omega beams, and also, she has superhuman strength, speed, durability, stamina, all that jazz. And she's immortal, so that's fun. In at 6, Barbatos. Finally getting into some villains who debuted after the New 52 and in DC Rebirth. Gotta love continuity reboots, am I right? Barbatos is a beastly one. First debuting in Dark Days, the Casting issue 1 from 2017, Barbatos, who is also known as the Bat God, was created by someone called the World Forger. More on them later. He's an entity who was created to consume universes that were in decay. The most stable universes would become part of the DC main multiverse, and Barbatos, a dragon-esque bat creature, would be sent out to destroy the other ones. But Barbatos' lust for destruction got the better of him, and he killed his master, corrupting the Forge of Worlds, which would later become known as the Dark Multiverse. Because he no longer did his job, unstable worlds persisted and would eventually join the Dark Multiverse too. Barbatos came into contact with Batman and the rest of the League, though, much later, when he set his sights on destroying the regular multiverse. Oh, and side note, he also claims to be the bat that Bruce Wayne saw through the window of his home the night he became Batman. Yeah. Moving on to a much less scarier villain. In at 5, the Omega Titans. Actually, they're pretty terrifying too. First appearing in DC Nation Volume 2, Issue 0, the Omega Titans, aka the Four Brothers, or the Four Mothers, depending on the planet you're on, are a group of eons-old entities who are believed to have been the ones who created life in the universe. As the legends go, at the end of the universe, the Omega Titans are supposed to consume all life to determine which of their natures had the most impact throughout the universe. Those natures being mystery, entropy, wisdom, and wonder. They first appeared after the Source Wall was broken, the Source Wall being the barrier surrounding the multiverse, and began to consume all life on a planet called Kalu. In order to put a stop to the situation from growing more dire, Brainiac formed 4 different teams from Earth's heroes and villains in order to face the threat that the Titans posed. Now, the Titans possess immense power, capable of absorbing galaxies for energy, and they can crush planets within their fists. According to Brainiac, the likes of Superman, Wonder Woman, Etrigan, etc. are just so tiny and inconsequential to them. In at number 4, Umbrax. Another 2018 villain here. Let's talk about Umbrax, who first popped up in Justice League Volume 4, Issue 3. Umbrax is another mind warp of a villain. It's a dark emotional entity, a timeless primordial force of the cosmos, which acts as the center of the invisible spectrum. So remember how we mentioned Barbatos earlier? When he was trying to take over the multiverse, his Dark Knights broke the Source Wall, and a piece of the Source Wall, known as the Totality, broke free and released a bunch of strange energies into the universe. Now this included 6 hidden primal forces, one of which broke the seal that kept Umbrax at bay. It would unleash its power over the ultraviolet part of the invisible spectrum, and Sinestro and Lex Luthor would end up unleashing it on Earth. In at number 3, Perpetua. Introduced in Justice League Volume 4, Issue 8 in 2018, we've got yet another villain ready to give you an existential crisis. Oh, Perpetua. Perpetua is the first creator and mother of the Over-Monitor, Anti-Monitor, and the World Forger. She is said to be the most feared being in the greater Omniverse. She is a super celestial, part of a race that was sent by the judges of the Source to create a new system of life within the greater Omniverse. Yeah, we are talking big stuff here. 20 billion years ago, she created the first multiverse. She then created suns to monitor each of the realms of matter within her multiverse. Flash forward 5 billion years later, Perpetua searched all of the universes within her multiverse to find those with great potential, which brought her to Earth 0. Seeing humans and Martians as imperfect, she merged the 2 species together to create something called Apex Predators, who would then serve as her soldiers to fight against the judges of the Source. When the other Super Celestials found out what she was up to, twisting the scale of judgment and defying her function, she was sealed away into the Source Wall. After the Source Wall was broken, she regained her corporeal form thanks to Lex Luthor and Brainiac. In at number 2, the Triumvirate of Sea Gods. Poking our heads out of the cosmos for a hot second with this number, let's talk about these 3 who first appeared in Justice League Volume 4, Issue 10 back in 2018, from a story arc called Drowned Earth Prelude, which was a prelude story, as you can probably tell. The Triumvirate are ocean deities of other galaxies. Like Poseidon is the ocean deity of our galaxy, they are to others. Now, the group is made up of Commander Drogue, Captain Gull, and Fleet Admiral Tide. They're gods, so therefore have the physiology and powers of gods. Wonder Woman even noted that Commander Drogue's power eclipses Superman's. That's intense. They lead a massive and loyal alien army, and Drogue has an alien Kraken called the Flood, who does pretty much anything he commands. They would continue to be villains of the Leagues during the Drowned Earth Justice League Aquaman crossover event that led into the beginning of 2019. Speaking of 2019, that brings us to our final number, in at 1, World Forger. World Forger has got one hell of a family. He's Perpetua's firstborn son and brother to Monitor and Anti-Monitor, and while he was first mentioned in Dark Knight's Metal Issue 4 in 2018, it wasn't until Justice League Volume 4 Issue 10 in 2019 that he really made his first full appearance. He also has a name beyond World Forger. It's Alpheus. After he was created by Perpetua, she assigned him to the World Forger, a place in the deep darkness beneath creation in which universes were created from the feelings and the fears of every living being in the multiverse itself. The most stable of worlds would rise into the regular multiverse, or rather, the orrery of worlds, and the unstable ones were dispatched of by Barbatos, Alpheus' dragon, and as we mentioned earlier, he was killed by his dragon. But after Barbatos was defeated by Batman in the Justice League, Alpheus was reformed in the 6th dimension. Then Perpetua was liberated and Alpheus started to create countless universes in order to create a perfect multiverse to replace the current one. Whenever a crisis occurs, aka a reboot event, something called a crisis anvil appears before Alpheus, and he strikes it with his hammer, causing a new multiverse to replace the former one, with the life energies of the prior multiverse transferring to the new one. So in other words, Alpheus has been using his hammer a whole lot in contemporary times for DC, hasn't he?
Kicking off the list at number 10, The Designer. Appearing for the first time in Batman Volume 3, Issue 89 in April 2020, The Designer was this masked criminal mastermind who at the age of 60, he earned himself legendary status for being able to execute these master plans. He also created this chemical that allowed himself to use corpses to move around and carry out said plans. Yuck. Zombie mind control army. You'll love to see it. Early on in Batman's career, The Designer watched him work. He watched him spoil the plans of Gotham's enemies, so he approached a few of them to talk. He sought out Catwoman, the Joker, Penguin, and the Riddler, and they all met at his hideout, the Tartarus House, just right outside of Gotham City. He offered them infallible plans, but when it came down to the Joker's desires, well, the Joker wanted his job. He wanted to take his place, of course. So the Designer ordered that undead army to attack, but Joker shot him, supposedly ending his life. Now cut to Batman Volume 3, Issue 85, The Designer returns, only Batman finds out that it's just another corpse being controlled by the Joker. Got him.
Number 9, Icon. Icon is not a living organic character, but is an AI character who was created by Ghostmaker. Icon was created to help Ghostmaker and sometimes act as his moral compass or even kind of his survival instincts, as Ghostmaker is a psychopath who as such is completely fearless, meaning that he often struggles with both of these important emotional components and traits. Icon acts similarly to Tony Stark's AI in the MCU, Jarvis, and helps Ghostmaker with calculation, strategy, and perspective on missions. Also, for those of you that are like, Jarvis is actually Tony Stark's butler in the comics, yes, I also know that too, but in the MCU, it's an AI. Icon also appears as a little blue ghost emote like the ghost emoji on your phone or little ghosties seen in Pac-Man. Basically, I'm a big Icon fan. Every time there's more Ghostmaker stories, I'm like, this character is great. More Ghostmaker, more Icon.
Number 8, The Underbroker. Making his first appearance in Batman Volume 3, Issue 92, just last August, the Underbroker, aka Harlan Graves, he was a senior partner at the firm Graves, Willock, and Crane. Harlan's job was to run a financial institute for criminals. He runs a bank for evil guys, so you know he's gonna be dressed to the nines. He's brilliant. I mean, the guy should have gone into crypto. He takes all these crooks, he takes their money, and then he transfers it and hides it in all these hedge funds, literally in the richest pockets. He's managed to keep this business a secret from Batman, but when Catwoman caught up to him, she asked if he wanted his safe numbers said out loud in front of others. He says no, and then she asks again if he wants Batman sniffing around the underbrokerage, and he repeats no, but he offers to make her rich if she spared him. How do you resist that? Come on. I wonder if he can settle my student loans. Might have to take a trip into the Gotham sewers, see what's up.
Number 7, Kaio the Trickster. Kaio is an ancient trickster who is similar to Marvel's Loki and is also associated with the concept of chaos. She often causes trouble just because she can and because she is curious to see what will happen. Kaio was responsible for transporting both Superman and Batman through time to an alternate world where they met alternate versions of themselves and were forced to fight. She often wipes the memories of those she meddles with, leaving them with no knowledge of her existence or what she did to them. Kaio first appeared in Batman/Superman issue number 2. Number 6, Leviathan. Leviathan was another mysterious villain of Superman's for a good amount of time during DC's Leviathan event. He was the leader of Leviathan, an anti-capitalist organization who seeks to dismantle society and reshape it through replacing the world's leaders. Basically, it's a terrorist organization. Writer Brian Michael Bendis later revealed that this mysterious figure would actually end up being not a new character, but instead a character who was well established in DC canon, although for a while we thought it was a new character. The big reveal would be that Leviathan was Mark Shaw, aka Manhunter, who had joined the organization and organized a coup to overthrow its leader, Talia al Ghul. After successfully doing so, Shaw became the new leader, taking up the codename Leviathan. And that's who we know him as now, Leviathan, no longer Manhunter. Number 5, Ulysses. Ulysses first appeared in Superman Volume 3, Issue 32 in the New 52. Ulysses himself was actually Neil Quinn from Earth. He was sent off-world to the 4th dimension in an attempt to save his life by his parents, who actually thought Earth would soon perish, much like Superman's parents did with him. He returned to Earth years later with superpowers acquired from the 4th dimension that were similar to Superman's, and discovered that Earth still exist, it actually hadn't perished. Ulysses was convinced by the Machinist to betray Earth when he was shown the potential for evil that humanity had. He then attempts to sacrifice 6 million humans in an effort to power his adoptive home, the fourth dimension, also known as the Great World. Number 4. Blank. Blank was first introduced in Superman Lois and Clark issue number 3. He is a psionic supervillain who posed a great threat to Superman post-Flashpoint, despite his powerful telepathic, telekinetic, and pyrokinetic abilities. However, Superman was able to restrain him until Blank was broken out by Cyborg Superman, who recruited him for his new Superman Revenge Squad. Number 3. Mr. Oz / Jor-El. Jor-El first appeared in the New Earth continuity in Man of Steel number 1 in the 80s. While this might not make him a new character, seeing him reimagined as a villain in the Prime Earth continuity was new. He made his first appearance in that continuity in Action Comics volume number 2, issue number 3. More recently, he has been known as Mr. Oz, who is a somewhat villainous and mysterious character who is seen interfering with Superman's life. Jor-El adopted this name after an unknown force transported him to Earth, allowing him to witness the cruelty of man. Since then, he adopted the name Mr. Oz and set out to prove to his son Kal-El that humans are evil beings who are unworthy of his protection. His master plan and who he was finally revealed in the story arc The Oz Effect. Number 2. Rogol Zaar. Rogol Zaar was created by Brian Michael Bendis and Jim Lee and first appeared in Action Comics issue 1000. What an issue to come in on. 1,000. That's a lot of issues. Rogol Zaar is an alien warrior who claimed to be responsible for the destruction of Krypton. He hates Kryptonians. Rogol is also strong enough to take on both Superman and Supergirl at the same time, and is a very powerful foe. He has been temporarily defeated and was held in a permanent stasis to prevent him from harming anybody else. But I'm sure this isn't the last that we'll see of this new mighty foe. He's just too powerful. Plus, you know, if you destroy Krypton, if you make that claim, probably gonna be around for a while. Number 1. Dr. Fate. Wait, what? Isn't Dr. Fate a good guy? Also, isn't he originally from the 1940s? Yes and yes, but in a new issue of Superman, issue 24 of volume 5, a magical storm is brewing to take on the Man of Steel himself. Superman is nigh invincible with only a few weaknesses to speak of, but despite having few, these weaknesses are pretty massive, pretty mighty for Kal-El, one being a weakness to magic. We've got a synopsis and cover art for issue 24 that reveals Superman will have a new villain on the rise who is pitting Supes against Dr. Fate. So while I'm sure Dr. Fate won't actually be going full villain and this will be a misunderstanding, this still means that Superman could have a very powerful and mysterious foe indeed rising up. Perhaps one that is also based in the realm of magic, which is pretty crazy, as this could mean that they could very well be one of the more powerful foes that Superman has yet to face in over 80 years of comics. But only time will tell what is really happening in this story where Superman takes on Dr. Fate. And you'll have to wait till at least June of 2020 to find out, assuming there aren't more comic book delays for that title.
Coming in at number 10, we've got Vengeance. Bane has been a mainstay in the Batman universe for years. Making many appearances in plenty of different forms, this super strong mask-wearing baddie is widely credited with being the only villain to properly break Batman, both physically and mentally. That's a tall order, especially considering how tough Batman usually is in both these categories. Whether we're looking at Tom Hardy's portrayal or maybe the Bane in Infinite Crisis, he uses his superior intelligence, willpower, and brute strength to bring his plans to fruition. So, of course, his offspring would be similarly powerful, with plenty to offer the stories of Arkham. Enter Vengeance, Bane's wiry, wildly powerful daughter. Appearing first in The Joker number 2, she appears to be looking to kill the clown prince of crime after a heinous attack that came to be known as the A-Day Joker gas attack. This chemical killing spree took out all sorts of folks in Arkham Asylum, and the friends and family of these famous villains were none too happy. Vengeance, living up to her name, has decided that she will be the one to exact revenge upon Joker, and heads out to find him. Just as strong as her father in pretty much all capacities, there isn't much that would stop her from completing her mission. In fact, she single-handedly wipes out an armed personal army while hunting for the green-haired menace. There is one little thing though. Joker claims he didn't pull off the gas attack. Chilling in Belize, Joker is unsure who would do such a thing, but says it definitely wasn't him. So this progeny of Bane, also apparently born in a lab, fueled by rage and powerful muscles, is on a bit of a wild goose chase. Even if she kills the Joker, she won't have the revenge she imagined. Plus, there's always the other mission of finding out who actually managed to gas Arkham Asylum. Vengeance is a straightforward and deadly force and should be a lot of fun to follow as things develop. Coming in number 9, we've got Clown Hunter. Another fanatical Joker hater, Clown Hunter gets his name from his goal. Pretty straightforward, eh? He wants Joker dead, and he wants to ensure this is done by his hands. Clown Hunter, aka Bao Fam. He hunts clowns. Why though? What would drive a young man to committing his life to killing a clown? Sure, Joker's done plenty of heinous things in his lifetime, but that's almost a given of living in Arkham City. Wouldn't most people like to figure out a way to live productive lives, even with the chaos training in the background? Well, things are personal when it comes to Clown Hunter and his supposed prey. As a child, he witnessed Joker kill his parents in cold blood and then run off cackling into the night, as Joker tends to do, of course. With this traumatic experience, Clown Hunter was committed to a life of hating Joker. He also came to believe that Batman simply wasn't doing enough to deal with this moron society. Joker kept killing innocent people and was always allowed to live afterwards. Even if he were to be imprisoned, restrained, or otherwise removed from society, he'd make his return in one way or another. So Clown Hunter decided that Joker needed to die. Batman was too lax with him, and so were the rest of the crime fighters in Arkham. Armed with a Batarang-tipped baseball bat, Clown Hunter killed something like a dozen of Joker's henchmen and even planned on killing Harley Quinn. Somehow, someway, Batman sniffs this out and attempts to reason with the kid. This doesn't stop another vigilante getting involved and encouraging Clown Hunter down the path of violence though. Coming in at number 8, we've got Flatline. Another character named after what they do, Flatline will stop your heart from beating. She'll do it in a particularly gruesome way, too. Known for ripping people's hearts out barehanded, she's a legendary martial artist with a brutal streak. Hell, she even did it to Robin during what can only be described as a Mortal Kombat tournament. Interestingly enough, the rules of the tournament allowed Robin to be resurrected, but that's neither here nor there. After training all her life under some of the world's finest martial artists, she was ready to bring her own story. Heading to the island to win a tournament that was said to grant immortality, she stood head and shoulders above the rest of the combatants. Appearing as an ashen-skinned woman with an affinity for black skeleton-themed clothing, she doesn't seem like the type to mercilessly kill countless top-tier fighters, but she does it anyway and does so with a smile.
Number 7. Master Wise. While Miracle Molly and Squeak might have been more prominently featured in the latest issues of Batman as we've come to know the Unsanity Collective, Master Wise is in essence their leader. The Unsanity Collective is all about exposing and reversing the sanity of Gotham, including the sanity its members see in everyday people who they see as kind of being sheep, not questioning the status quo, and even in vigilantes. I mean, probably especially in vigilantes. Vigilantes are pretty insane, I think we can all agree. Master Wise and the Unsanity Collective give those who seek to join them a fresh start and clear mind by seemingly removing their history and previous memories. By seemingly removing their history and memories of their previous life, allowing them to take up a new identity as an active member of the collective, which is kinda like a commune, who as a group take care of one another.
Number 6. The Talon and the Court of Owls. The Court of Owls seems to be part of Matt Reeves' upcoming Batman flick in one way or another, so we'd figure we'd get you caught up to them right now. They were created by Scott Snyder as this new secret society that uses architecture and violence to gain political influence over time. My two favorite things. Nice, they go together. They appear for the first time in Batman Volume 2 Issue 2 when Bruce announces plans to rebuild Gotham for the better. The court can't have this happen, so he's sentenced to death, with the Talon setting his sights on Bruce. The Talon attempts to take out Bruce atop Wayne Tower while he was meeting with politician Lincoln March. Batman investigates and finds that these guys have been around for quite some time. He discovers that the Court of Owls had secret headquarters and hidden rooms in every single building established by the Alan Wayne Trust. So Bruce remembers back when he was a child, and he believes that the Court of Owls are in fact responsible for his parents this whole time. The Talon is an assassin named William Cobb. He proudly claims to have taken out several members of the Wayne family. Do you think the Talon will make an appearance in the new Batman movie? I'm not gonna lie, we see the Riddler in the trailer for Matt Reeves' Batman, but it does kind of look like the Talon a little bit. I don't know, we could be getting fooled. We also see an owl on the Riddler's card, so maybe we're just getting more than we think.
Number 5. Madame Midas. Madame Midas is known for being the richest woman on the earth and appears to be covered head to toe in gold. At least that's what it looks like to me in the comics. She's very shiny. A criminal and supervillain, she is an arch nemesis of Ghostmakers who is prominently featured in his own flashback stories included in the last few issues of the current 2016 Batman series, starting in issue 107. Madame Midas is the current big bad he is up against and looking to take Ghostmaker down in the story, which had its penultimate chapter in issue 111 fan of Batman, and will have its conclusion told in Batman's 2021 annual issue in November, which I'm super hyped for. Madame Midas awaits Ghostmaker at the top of her tower on a secluded island that he has infiltrated. She has brought together his former enemies as her last line of defense, and in hopes to learn of a way to defeat him. But so far, it's not looking very good for Madame Midas, as Ghostmaker seems to be a step ahead of her at every turn. And friends, before we move on to the next spot, if you are loving this video and you want more Batman videos, which honestly Batman is so good right now, I'd love to talk more about Batman, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up.
Number 4, Red Tool. Wayne Wilkins, Red Tool. This sounds familiar already. Okay. Red Tool made his first appearance in Harley Quinn Volume 2. When Wayne first met Harley, it was love at first sniff. Yeah, Harley was under the influence of these berries that make anybody who smell her fall dearly in love with her. Red Tool also isn't the only one falling under that spell. So what does he do? He fights everybody else who has. He even loses an arm and becomes a cripple during this. He's kind of seen as a joke villain. Obviously he's similar to Deadpool in design and character, but he's actually pretty badass. At one point, Red Tool kidnaps Harley at a roller derby match using sleep gas and then takes her to the top of a Ferris wheel because, romance. Up there he explains his origin story to Harley, but she's not interested yet. She gets home and sees that he's left her his number and a red hammer. This number is a message explaining that she has to meet him at a local church where he's of course kidnapped enough members for a wedding, which obviously doesn't go well.
Number 3, Mayor Nakano. Mayor Nakano was once one of the few honest members of the Gotham City Police Department. Prior to becoming mayor, he was a police officer on the GCPD force, but after the events of Joker War was elected as mayor of Gotham. Mayor Nakano is very important considering that he is the mayor of Gotham and ultimately decides on many policies and programs that could affect the city. He detests masks of any kind, seeing both vigilantes and villains as threats to Gotham and its citizens' safety. Due to the machinations of Simon Saint and Scarecrow, he ended up being pressured into initiating the Magistrate program of Saint Industries, which we know is a road that could potentially lead to a militarized city-state-like cyberpunk-esque future that we saw for Gotham in Future State. I mean, I guess you know that if you read Future State, which if you haven't read any of the Future State stuff, go read some of it. It was pretty cool. Also, the colors are really nice, I just gotta say.
Number 2, Astrid Arkham. Making her first appearance with Detective Comics number 1000, Astrid Arkham was born in, well, Arkham Asylum. Both of her parents were doctors working there. Her mother, Ingrid Carlson, was loved in the asylum, even by the Joker. Her father, Jeremiah Arkham, was a descendant of Arkham Asylum's founder, Amadeus Arkham. So they were Arkham OGs. Now, when Ingrid was pregnant with Astrid, a riot popped off in usual Arkham form. An amazing moment to see here, weirdly, because all these supervillains were now protecting Ingrid while she went into labor. I'm talking Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, the Joker, Solomon Grundy, and Clayface. What a moment. Now, right after she gave birth, a rogue Batarang slipped by, and that was sadly the last of Ingrid. So now her father had to raise the child alone. She was homeschooled in Arkham and even became friends with all of these inmates. They felt like they owed her mother their kindness at least. She grew up hating Batman, of course, but that hatred grew even more once Astrid found footage of her fateful birthday. From that point on, she trained herself into a skilled fighter, started a cult called the Knights of the Sun, and went after the one who threw said cursed Batarang, eventually calling herself the Arkham Knight.
Number 1, Jace. Tim Fox is the brother to Luke, Tam, and Tiffany Fox, as well as the son of Lucius and Tanya Fox. Tim is a new character in the sense that he's been reinvented and reintroduced in the Prime Earth continuity, first appearing in the current run of Batman's issue 101 in 2020. But he also has been around in the New Earth continuity since 1979, so new but also old. However, in the previous continuity he would be introduced and then seemingly forgotten for a lengthy period of time before being brought back near the end of that continuity, making one more appearance right before New 52 came in and brought us the Prime Earth continuity. It would then take 9 more years before Tim would be remembered and brought back again in 2020, and we'd also learn as we peered into an alternate future in Future State that Tim now went by the name Jace and was seemingly destined to become the new Batman after Bruce, which makes him pretty important. If you want to learn more about how and why Jace became Batman, some recommended reading would be The Next Batman and Dark Detective from Future State. And if you want to watch him potentially become Batman or become more Batman-like, you can check out the Prime Earth continuity series, The Next Batman, Second Son, and the upcoming I Am Batman, which as of this reading is currently on issue number 0, but issue number 1 is coming soon. And those are both by John Ridley, so pretty cool reads, I think.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Erica Manson, aka Marionette. She made her comic book debut just 2 years ago in Doomsday Clock issue 1. Her and her father moved to the United States and opened up a puppet shop across the street from Maze Glass, which eventually led her to meet Marcos Maze, who would soon become her husband, but I'll get into that a little bit later. They started, of course, as best friends, while Marco's stepfather thought that she was a bad influence. Ooh! So Marco ended up saving Erica from some bullies, and then Erica's father committed suicide after corrupt police officers were extorting money out of him at his puppet shop. Now, of course, this already sounds like a villain origin story, but it gets worse. So Erica ended up getting payback on the policeman while, of course, becoming the alternate persona, Marionette, with her trusty lover sidekick, Mime, aka Marcos Maze, who I mentioned earlier. I love this duo, honestly. Like, the vibe reminds me of, like, from Baby Driver, where you have Buddy and Darling. A lot of love and violence, just a hot mix. And before we head over to number 9, guys, if you could just give this video a thumbs up and like this video, it goes a long way over here at the studio. You guys rock, thank you. Now back to some more villains. And number 9, the Underbroker, not to be confused with the Underminer from Incredibles. So Harlan Graves, aka the Underbroker, is a businessman and lawyer located in, of course, Gotham City, who runs a bank for criminals. The Underbroker, of course, wears a fancy suit and a mask. I mean, he looks ready to go to the club, and he also looks ready to crunch some numbers. Love the red and black combo. Slick. He's a broker for criminals, so he would help them store cash in hedge funds. And he's actually so good at his job that the Caped Crusader doesn't even know about his secret organization he calls the Underbrokerage. Great name. He actually helped Catwoman transfer Batman's money to her account, but it was later revealed that he was just getting the account for the Joker. Super smart, super evil, and super handsome. Gotta love it. He made his debut in Batman Volume 3, issue 92, so if you want to check him out for yourself, you know where to look. And number 8, Barbados, also referred to as the Bat God, not Rap God. And he resides in the Dark Multiverse. So, the World Forger, of course, was set to watch over the vast universes, and while some of them held up, there are just some worlds that were just naturally unstable. So, what next? Well, they send a dragon named Barbados to destroy it. That way the energy can then return to the Forge. Now, sometimes you like your job a little bit too much, and this was the case for the Bat God. See, he ended up killing his master and then had a real taste for destruction, thus corrupting the Forge of Worlds. So now, with Barbados not destroying these worlds and sending that energy back, these worlds ended up becoming part of the Dark Universe. His journey begins with Dark Days, The Casting, issue 1.
Number 7, Ellie Camacho. Eleanor is the daughter of Deadpool and Carmelita Karma Camacho. That's right, Deadpool is a daughter, if you can believe it. Carmelita and Deadpool were being held hostage together, and fearing that she would die, Carmelita decided she wanted her last acts to be those of love. Her and Deadpool were rescued right in the middle of this act of love, but he still managed to get her pregnant. She initially raised baby Ellie on her own, but did track down Deadpool to at least get him to recognize his daughter and take some responsibility. That was during the time that he was actually working for Butler and constantly having his mind wiped. Butler saw the child as an opportunity, and before Deadpool could scare off Carmelita and baby Ellie, took a blood sample from the baby. This happened in Deadpool Volume 3, issue 34 out of 2013. And in this issue, we learned that the results of that blood test proved that Ellie had an active X gene, meaning she was a mutant who would one day grow up to manifest powers. We don't know what they are yet, but I'm sure they're gonna be amazing. Also, she's a mutant, so cool. Number 6, Nature Girl. Nature Girl was given her name by Eye-Boy. The two mutants also went on a bit of an adventure together while babysitting Jubilee's adopted son, Shogo. And the two were both a part of Jubilee's team of mutants to train at Kitty Pryde's Xavier Institute for Mutant Education and Outreach in Central Park. They are also really cute together, with Eye-Boy being covered in eyes and Lynn with her little antlers being a master of nature. Lynn Lee, aka Nature Girl's powers consist of an ability to bend nature to her will and communicate with it. She is able to soothe beasts, can control the elements, and can even heal nature. Truly the mutant we could all use right now, am I right? Come on, heal this terrible Earth that we have destroyed. Lynn Lee was also a student at the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. Number 5, X-Men: The End. In this series, we saw a bunch of teams kind of come together, ending in one big one, and Chris Claremont's The End. I like this X-Men team as well because although she died pretty early on in terms of her appearance here, we also get a shout out at least to Dust. And Dust is such an underrated X-Men in my opinion. This comic also introduces us to the future daughter of Bishop and Deathbird, Aaliyah Bishop. The final X-Men team features Kitty Pryde, Wolfsbane, Karma, Northstar, Dust, Martha Johansson aka No Girl, the Cuckoos, Cyclops, and a subgroup known as the Heavy Hitters, which features Wither, Frenzy, Polaris, Juggernaut, and Kid Colossus. Number 4. The Upstarts. Speaking of young mutant teams that are lesser known like the Hellions, we also have their straight up not friendly at all rivals, the Upstarts. The Upstarts were definitely a more villainous crew in comparison to the Hellions, just in general, as their whole goal was to basically kill mutants. The Upstarts were a mutant team created by Selene, the Black Queen of the Hellfire Club. She put the team together in order to test the members, getting them to compete for points which would be awarded whenever they killed mutants, based on the mutants' power set. Originally, the young group of mutants involved were unnamed and were promised that whoever got the most points would win a prize, which remained a mystery pretty much through all of the comics that they were featured in. I bet it's cake, and I bet it's a lie. Although I think it was also mentioned at one point somewhere that it was immortality, so in case you were wondering, for realsies. Number 3. Battle of the Atom Future X-Men. While everyone might focus on the Battle of the Atom Future Brotherhood team, as Raze has a tendency to steal the show, plus My Girl Zorn Jean, and also featuring Molly Hayes, people tend to forget about the awesomeness that was the Future X-Men team. The real X-Men team. This team featured a much more skilled Iceman, who now was known as Ice Wizard, Wiccan, who had become Sorcerer Supreme, Chimera, who is believed to be Storm's daughter that she had with Black Panther, Shogo, Jubilee's son, known as Sentinel X, Colossus armed with Magic Soul Sword, Kid Omega as Phoenix, and Jubilee as Wolverine. Number 2. Extreme Sanctions Executive, the other XSE. This team also spiraled out of the team that we talked about previously on part 1 of this list, Extreme X-Men. XSE here stands for the Extreme Sanctions Executive. Similar to the original XSE that Bishop was a part of in the future, this team is also like a military police force meant to maintain and in some cases enforce peace is kept between mutants and humans. Storm was asked to create the team by the United Nations and eventually would increase its numbers by recruiting the rest of her X-Men, making this team another government-sanctioned mutant team, like X-Factor was, and still one of the first of those types of teams. Team members have included Bishop, Cannonball, Magma, Rachel Summers is on every team, I love it, Psylocke, Rogue, Sage, Wolverine, X-23, and Gambit. Number 1. X-Animals. If you're an intense X-Men fan, you may be familiar with Mojo's X-Babies, but are you familiar with his other attempts at recreating or recasting Marvel's 616 X-Men after they were believed dead? One such team that attempted to step in was the X-Animals. This was a team of, well, animals, who each took on the role of a different mutant member of the X-Men. We've got a skunk standing in for Rogue, a bulldog for Wolverine, a pig for Dazzler, a rabbit as Havoc, a cat for our Storm, which I kinda love, a bird, possibly a hawk as Longshot, an otter as Psylocke, and a gorilla as Colossus. Sadly, this team was not acceptable as a replacement in Mojo's opinion, and he got rid of them. But I'd love to see them return at some point, if that's possible. Number 10. Eye-Boy. While Trevor Hawkins may seem like an absurd mutant all covered in eyes and whatnot, I wouldn't write him off just yet. His mutation revealed itself following the events of the Avengers vs. X-Men. He has died multiple times since his introduction in the Wolverine and the X-Men series, but he always keeps randomly coming back. As I said, you might think his death has occurred so many times because his abilities could be deemed as lame. What use is being covered in eyeballs? Sounds more inconvenient than anything. But his multiple eyes have actually granted Trevor some pretty cool powers. For one, he's been shown to be able to use his eyes and the multiple perceptions from them in target practice, making him a really proficient marksman. His improved vision also allows him to be better at reading people's nonverbal cues, giving him greater insight into those people that he interacts with, people or mutants. This also translates into battle by giving him enhanced perception when it comes to an incoming attack, being able to tell when someone is about to pull a punch, etc, etc. And of course, his eyes also allow him to see on both a microscopic and a telescopic level, meaning he can see a little speck of dust or see clearly something that is quite far, far away. If you're wondering why I looked over there, I was looking far, far away. That's me trying to have telescopic vision. It's not working. Number 9. Triage. Triage made his first appearance in the all-new X-Men series. His powers involve life force control over other beings, and for a while some believed his powers also granted Christopher Muse immortality. However, Christopher appears to have died after being forcibly cured of his mutation, which in itself ended up killing him. With his powers, Triage was able to heal others and could even reanimate corpses, though their state of decay would remain unchanged. And if he had been granted more time, who knows? He may have even been able to completely heal and resurrect people, restoring them to a more lively and maybe less zombie-like appearance. Too bad he died. Although, is he dead? Is he not dead? Was he immortal? I don't know. Stay tuned to find out more. Number 8. Hijack. David Bond was first introduced in Uncanny X-Men Volume 3. He was revealed to be a technopath with a proficiency for controlling cars with his mind. He could start an engine, unlock and open doors, and make them drive around. A pretty sexy power in my opinion, but then again I have an affinity for cars because I'm a weirdo. After David discovered his powers, he went to parking lots at night to test them out, but ended up being caught by the local police. At the time his girlfriend Karen was with him. Terrified, she actually outed David as a mutant, getting him into quite a bit of trouble. David was then rescued by the X-Men while trying to flee the police. He later took the codename Hijack. Appropriate, I think. His powers have also been shown to be able to manipulate more tech than just vehicles. He can actually use them to defeat Sentinels and even interfere with technological armor. Not a mutant that Iron Man would like to go up against then. Although Iron Man is a bit of a technopath himself now. I wonder who would win in a fight. But I think my money's still on Hijack. His technopath powers seem stronger. Come at me if you think Iron Man would win, but I don't know. Number 7. Forget-Me-Not. Propositional existentialism incarnate. To be or not to be? That is the question. With Forget-Me-Not you can actually never be quite sure, although you probably would be more inclined to think that he didn't exist. Not to be in this case. Or scratch that. To not even know who I was talking about when I asked your opinion on if he existed or not. Forget-Me-Not's mutant powers are that he is imperceptible, meaning that no one even knows he's there or can sense him. This translates to technology, and this also goes beyond just the physical perception as well. Even telepaths struggle to take note of him. There are some weird exceptions to his power though, like Phantom X claiming that he could always detect Forget-Me-Not for some reason, and Psylocke has been able to find ways to locate him within others' memories through absences and holes that he leaves behind. But even Xavier himself had to set a once-an-hour reminder in his mind in order to remember Forget-Me-Not, and he was one of the most skilled at remembering him, so apparently other than Phantom X though, who could just remember him because his senses are real good. I don't believe it. I think Phantom X is fibbing. He's just trying to sound cool. It's like, I always knew he was here. I can see him right now. It's fine. He's overweight. Rude. Number 6. Gabrielle Kinney. Gabrielle Kinney has been through a series of codenames since her introduction in All New Wolverine in 2016. When Gabby was introduced, she got to play the role of Little Sis to another favorite mutant, X-23, Laura Kinney, who had actually adopted the codename Wolverine in that series. She was the all-new Wolverine, get it? See, Gabby is also a clone of Wolverine's, which makes her part of a weird kind of clone family. Ergo, her powers are also similar to those of Laura and Logan's. She has bone claws and a healing factor and enhanced senses. But she also has a different ability than her predecessors. She cannot feel pain, making her an extremely tough mutant to go up against. Also probably be hard for her to know when she's like getting close to being defeated. Like, I don't know, I can't feel it. Number 5. Extreme X-Men. This X-Men roster marked the return of Chris Claremont to the X-Men in a full-time capacity. Extreme X-Men Volume 1 is a series that started in 2001 and ran till 2004. It was a team that featured my girl Rogue as the leader, woohoo, which you know I'm all about. The original Extreme X-Men roster also featured Beast, Psylocke, Bishop, Storm, Sage, and Thunderbird on the team. Lifeguard, Gambit, and Slipstream were also added to the mix throughout. This team was originally brought together to find Destiny's premonition-filled diaries, but of course along the way was distracted by many other imminent threats. As you do when you're on an X team. Number 4. Generation Hope. This one is from the 2010 series Generation Hope and was under Cyclops' banner ultimately following the events of Regenesis. Though the team itself was led by mutant messiah Hope Summers, and its roster consisted of No Girl, Pixie, Primal, Sebastian Shaw, Transonic, Velocidad, and Zero at that time. Though originally Hope's team started pre-Regenesis as just being 5 mutants including Hope herself, with Velocidad, Oya, Primal, and Transonic on the team. The team team was a search and rescue group who were brought together as they were acknowledged as being 4 of the 5 lights on Cerebra. Hope basically triggered the rebirth of the mutant gene, activating these mutants. The 5th light was what they sought and kind of why they came together, heading to Tokyo, Japan. Zero was the mutant they sought, who would eventually join the team, although originally would be antagonist. Number 3, X-People. You probably forgot about this team just because their name is, well, super forgettable, but they are actually from a very memorable alternate universe, the MC2, or also known as Alternate Earth 982. This Earth is the home of the beloved Mayday Parker, aka Spider-Girl, now known as Spider-Woman. But you know what's not so memorable from that universe? Their version of the X-Men. I mean, I get that X-People is meant to be gender neutral, more inclusive, but is that really the best name they could come up with? There has to be something that isn't X-Men that is better than that. I mean, I know there is because we have dozens of other X teams with the letter X in them that are way more catchy than X-People. Because of the Earth it is set in, X-People is a team of originally younger mutants who are now older and taking on the role of leaders, mentors, and teachers. Actually, here Jubilee is the team leader, with her core team roster including Simeon, Angry Eagle, Torque, and Spanner. Number 2, Factor 3. Factor 3? That sounds like some kind of toothpaste. This is another villainous team composed of mutants but led by an alien known as Mutant Master. You might not remember it because it was only around for a few issues and also first appeared way early on in X-Men issue 28 back in 1967. This team popped up a few times and would often force mutants into doing their bidding, often mind-controlling Banshee to attempt to kidnap or help kidnap Professor X. What a wacky time it was. Fortunately, in issue 39, Factor 3 was defeated for good and hasn't bothered the X-Men since. So we haven't seen them for a really long time. Number 1, Lightning Force. This X-Men team comes to us admittedly from an alternate reality, which might be why you've never heard of it before. But once you learn about them, you'll likely wish they had remained forgotten. Lightning Force is an X-Men team that we come across in the Exiles, who themselves belong to Earth 597. They are basically the alternate Excalibur team from their reality, a reality where the Axis won World War II. I think you know where we're going with this. Their roster is almost as surprising as the whole idea for this team. We have Herr Xavier, who helped to create the team through experimenting on them. Yikes. And leading the team, we have Hauptmann England, aka Captain Britain, with Magon, aka Gloriana, Shadowcat, and Nightcrawler. Also, if you were wondering, yes, Kitty Pryde is still Jewish in this reality, which yeah, makes her character's history here pretty dark.
Starting us off in at number 10, Mercury. Let's begin our list with a mutant who debuted in August of 2003, in New Mutants Volume 2, Issue 2. Mercury, aka Cecily Kincaid, has the ability to mimic Mercury, hence her codename. Her body is made up of a non-toxic metal that resembles mercury, and she can reshape it or solidify at will, despite still being relatively inexperienced in shapeshifting. She can cling to solid surfaces thanks to her molecular adhesion powers, and has exhibited super strength at times, although the full extent of that strength is still undetermined. Now, she doesn't require food or water, although she does eat to make herself fit in better with others. She ended up being selected by Emma Frost to be part of her Hellion squad, along with a few other of her fellow teenage pals at the Institute, including our next number, in at 9, Rockslide. Rockslide, aka Santo Vaccaro, first debuted in 2003's New Mutants Volume 2, Issue 3, in September of that year. He is a mutant with the ability to transform into a golem form, which he does by assimilating surrounding rock and earth into a Gestalt shell, which he can also detonate at will to cause an explosion. And this form gives him superhuman strength, durability, and endurance. After traveling from his home of Boston to live at the Xavier Institute, he began to befriend the soon-to-be Hellions, with Emma Frost selecting him to be a part of the Hellion squad. He's also got quite the fun personality. Santo dreams of being a superhuman wrestling star. Initially he was portrayed as a bit of a bully, but now the more that we get to know his character, the more that he's grown, becoming more good-natured and fiercely protective of his friends. He also loves murder mystery television and Dance Dance Revolution, so he's pretty relatable. It's also worth noting that he was one of the students who managed to retain his powers after M-Day. Moving on to number 8, Armor. Armor, aka Hisako Akichi, is a Japanese mutant who first appeared in October of 2004 in Astonishing X-Men issue 4. Her mutant powers are pretty rad. She has the ability to generate an impenetrable psionic exoskeleton body armor that gives her superhuman strength, reflexes, agility, endurance, stamina, dexterity, durability, and invulnerability.
Not too shabby, huh? Her goal was always to become an X-Man, and she went through some pretty traumatic stuff while she was a student at Xavier's. After the alien villain Ord attacked the school, her best friend Wing had been injected with a cure for his mutant ability, and eventually he committed suicide because of it, with Armor, along with Kitty Pryde and other students at the time, all being trapped inside the danger room with his reanimated corpse. That happened when the room became sentient and hostile towards them, so not a good experience for her, needless to say. In at number 7, Blindfold. Blindfold is Ruth Aldine, a character who first debuted in Astonishing X-Men Volume 3, Issue 7 in 2005, despite being mentioned several months prior in the same series as Issue 4. Now, she was created by Joss Whedon and John Cassaday, and she's got some wickedly powerful abilities. She's a telepath, is capable of retrocognition, clairvoyance, precognition, reality anchoring, astral projecting, and psychic energy manifestation. Over the years, she's had some other powers that she's lost or regained, including telekinesis, chaos manipulation, and accelerated probability. Now, ever since she was a child, Ruth has worn a blindfold over her eyes in order to cover up her mutation. She was born without eyes, but has powerful psionic abilities. Now, her powers are neutralized when she's in the presence of another precognitive, like Destiny, who explained that when two precogs are in close proximity to each other, it's like they're two magnets pressed together positive pole to positive pole, negatively affecting each other's powers. These days, after Dawn of X, Ruth's predictions about her future proved to be true. She knew that there would be a utopia for most mutants, but because of her precognition abilities and Moira McTaggart's demands that no precogs be allowed on Krakoa, she was not able to join her peers. And at number 6, Bling. Roxy Washington is Bling, with an exclamation point. A mutant who attended the Xavier Institute and was a part of the X-Men in Training Squad, first appearing in X-Men Volume 2, Issue 171 in 2005. She's the daughter of a celebrity couple, two hip-hop artists named Daddy Libido and Sexy Mother. And because of this, she had often been targeted by kidnappers or assassins because of her parents' fame. She had no desire to follow in her family's footsteps, and being a mutant who had a diamond form and superhuman durability, and an ability to project diamond shards to boot, she came to the Xavier Institute and was trained under Gambit under his squad. She's also bisexual and had a big ol' crush on Rogue. I mean, who doesn't? Aside from her genius powers, she's got a genius level intellect, she's a master engineer, and at one point she was recruited for Angel's board at Worthington Industries. She's also not overly caught up in the mutant-human dynamic, she kind of prefers to just not deal with it. To each their own. And at number 5, Trance. Next up we have another mutant who debuted in 2005, Trance. Trance first hit the scene in New X-Men Academy X issue 12. Trance, whose name is Hope Abbott, is a mutant with a particularly interesting power. She has an energetic astral projective form in which she projects her astral self and can travel over far distances in this form, as well as avoid physical injury and can produce a disruptive energy surge. The first time her powers manifested in her hometown of Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, it looked as if a ghost had come out of her body and it actually gave her father a heart attack. She was then sent by her parents to the Xavier Institute in hopes of her being cured of this mutation. Culturally sophisticated and voted the best dressed by her classmates, Hope never really made the cut when it came to the formation of a new X-Men team, but she stayed at the Institute to train further. She has a decent amount of untapped power that she's yet to learn to control, like creating arcing energy surges that can stun foes, and bend metal or concrete. In at number 4, Graymalkin. Jumping forward a few years for this one, let's talk about Jonas Graymalkin, a character who first appeared in Young X-Men issue 1 in June of 2008. Jonas is quite old, narratively speaking. He was born in pre-revolutionary America and spent his youth coming to terms with his sexuality, having realized that he was gay. His father caught him with another boy one day in their family's barn, and believing that Jonas was an abomination and the spawn of the devil, because he was super Christian, he beat Jonas to death, or at least he thought Jonas had died. His father buried him alive in the nearby woods, and this is what triggered Jonas's mutant powers, allowing him to survive around 200 years underground, which just so happened to be under the Xavier Institute. Turns out he's actually an ancestor of Charles Xavier's. Now, when a Sentinel attack destroyed the school, he was unearthed. So, what exactly are his powers? It's something called darkness empowerment. It's related to light exposure. The darker it is, the more powerful he becomes. This includes giving him superhuman strength, nigh invulnerability, longevity, or potentially immortality on that front since he survived without food or water for 200 years, and of course, night vision. Moving on to number 3, Transonic. Transonic, also known as Laurie Tremette, debuted in July of 2010 in Uncanny X-Men issue 526. She is a mutant with supersonic flight, capable of not only propelling her body through the air at transonic speeds, but also can change her physical properties in order to have better maneuverability in the air, which she does at higher altitudes or when traveling at high speeds. She's been able to make herself look like a large flying fish or a missile. When Laurie first appeared in Uncanny X-Men, she was a blue teenager, quite literally, having difficulty coping with her mutation. When the X-Gene manifested in her, it took no real form, but it caused her skin to change color, for her to lose her hair, and gave her flu-like symptoms. So she tried to commit suicide by jumping off a building, but in doing so, it actually activated her powers. Eventually, she joined up with Hope Summers as one of the Five Lights, becoming a prominent character in the Generation Hope series. Now, aside from her powers, she's an incredibly smart and thoughtful mutant, citing logic as the rationale for her actions, and getting annoyed at her teammates when they confuse things like ethics and morals. She's also Canadian, so. And at number 2, Brandon Sharp. Brandon Sharp, also known as Stryker, first hit the scene in August of 2010 in Avengers Academy issue 1. He has the power of electrokinesis, capable of generating huge amounts of electricity and then manipulating it. This includes creating lightning blasts from his hands and eyes, electromagnetic shields to use for defense, and he can propel himself into the air and fly via electrokinetic flight, up to 40 miles per hour. Unfortunately, he is a bit of a twat. He's a self-centered and egotistical character who's focused on his own gain rather than helping others. Brandon had a bit of a rough upbringing though. His father was an adulterous politician and his mother was fame-hungry, who made him become a child actor. Brandon's manager, Rick, tried to take advantage of the young boy, and that's where Brandon's powers first manifested, frying the limo that they were in and severely injuring Rick. And finally, in at number 1, Velocidad. Gabriel Coelho is Velocidad, a mutant who debuted in 2010 in Uncanny X-Men issue 527. He's another Generation Hope mutant who is a part of the Five Lights with Hope Summers, and kind of also had a thing with her until she caught him making out with Pixie. Unfortunately, he met his end almost 9 years later, dying in Uncanny X-Men Volume 5 issue 21. Now, Gabriel is capable of doing something called localized time manipulation. He can slow down the movement of time around him, but remains unaffected by that slowdown. So it does make him appear as if he's moving incredibly fast. But really, he's not a speedster, just a time manipulator, which is what everyone actually initially thought his powers were. Now, his powers speed up his aging greatly though, which is what happened after he was detained and forced to use his powers for ONE, the Office of National Emergency. He was merged with Warlock in order to keep him alive, and eventually when Wolverine came across him, he asked Logan to kill him, which the mutant did in an act of mercy. Told you it didn't end well.
Number 10, Kid Omega. Kid Omega, aka Quentin Quire, has also been described as an Omega level telepath and telekinetic before. He joined up with the Xavier Institute later in the new X-Men series in issue 134. Quickly, Quentin became a prized student of Xavier's, who saw within him a great potential, as brilliant and as talented as he was. However, over time and with the revelation that he had been adopted, he became more rebellious and egotistical. He questioned Professor X and the professor's dream for the world, for humans and mutant kind to coexist in harmony. He began using the mutant drug Kick and created a gang called the Omega Gang, which set out attacking humans. Eventually, he was beaten down by the Stepford Cuckoos and he reformed, though he would continue to be known for having a bit of an attitude and a rebellious streak. But hey, isn't that why we love him? Or is that why we hate him? I don't know. You tell me. You be the judge. Quentin Quire, love or hate? Number 9, Prodigy. Prodigy is David Elaine, a mutant who is often associated with the X-Men and who attended the Xavier Institute. He came to the famous mutant school after trying to hide his powers. David has always been a smart kid, but he started noticing one day that he knew things that he simply just couldn't have known, and that he didn't remember learning. It turned out that David had been telepathically absorbing knowledge and skill sets from the minds of those around him. Feeling bad about his ability, like it gave him an unfair edge and meant he was kind of cheating, he sought to hide it and doubled down on studying to improve his knowledge naturally. Unfortunately, the mutant hate group Purity ended up uncovering his secret and outing him as a mutant, causing him to turn to the Xavier Institute. He would lose his abilities on M-Day, but still remain a valuable hero, with all of the knowledge he retained later becoming fully accessible to him again. Being a mutant with studious telepathic abilities, I also love that he was originally depicted as needing glasses. Though of course, in a land of magic and superpowers, he was later cured of his need for corrective lenses by mutant Elixir. Number 8, Elixir. Josh Foley is an Omega level mutant. He found himself at the Xavier Institute after being rejected by his friends and his family because of his mutant status. Sad face. Originally, he was part of the anti-mutant group, the Reavers, but discovered during a fight with some mutant students that he actually was a mutant himself, with healing abilities, which he used to heal one of the fellow Reavers who was injured in the fight. He tried to hide his powers as long as he could, but eventually he got found out and outed. His powers allow him to manipulate the biological structure of organic matter within a certain proximity to him. He can use these powers to heal or to harm others, and is also able to sense one's life energy, and even transfer life energy from one being to another. Force heal ability. Most recently we saw him in the House of X as a member of the Five, a group of mutants whose powers when joined together allow them to resurrect other fallen mutants. He made his first appearance in New Mutants Volume 2. Number 7. Abigail Brand. Abigail Brand was created by John Cassidy and Joss Whedon, and made her comic book debut in Astonishing X-Men Volume 3. She is a no-nonsense badass who is half mutant and half alien. One of the first to show us that even those with alien heritage can also be mutant too. Brand is best known in affiliation with SWORD, a division of S.H.I.E.L.D. that seeks to guard the world against and deal with extraterrestrial threats. SWORD stands for Sentient World Observation and Response Department, in case you didn't know. And Brand serves as the commander of the organization, the head of the organization, if you will. Her mutant power is contact pyrokinesis. She can produce blue or red flames on her hands and use those to burn through almost anything or anyone that gets in her way. So watch out for Abigail Brand, she'll mess you up. Number 6. Oya. Despite making her first appearance in Uncanny X-Men, the original X-Men series, Idie still didn't end up joining the group until 2010. Yeah, that original series went on for a long time. Idie made her first appearance in issue 528. Idie's powers involve thermal manipulation. She can convert thermal energy into extreme hot or extreme cold, but she does need thermal energy in order to be able to do this. She can't just create flames or ice on her own. Idie was discovered by the X-Men through Cerebra. When her powers activated, she accidentally killed her family by burning down her village in Oyo State, Nigeria. The military showed up seeking to stop and destroy her, but Hope and Storm rescued her. Yay! Number 5. Magneto. For those who think Magneto is just an evil mutant who is born enemy to the X-Men, he has also spent quite a bit of time working alongside them as well. Most notably, Magneto was actually a leader of the New Mutants team while working alongside the X-Men. Despite the fact that he and Charles haven't always seen eye to eye, even Professor X knows that Eric can be a powerful ally. So, how did he make his way onto the Avengers? Well, this of course happened during the Axis event. After many major heroes had their alignments inverted, Magneto was one of the superpowered now heroes to be recruited into that temporary, technically non-official Avengers team. Number 4. Rogue. Rogue joined the Uncanny Avengers in issue number 4 of the 2012 series. She would become the field leader for the Avengers Unity Division. She was first approached by Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch, who asked her to stick around on the team after Rogue helped them out in issue 4. This was also the same issue that Scarlet Witch joined, and of course was after both the events of M-Day and after Wanda had just been used as a pawn by Red Skull, who at this point was immensely powerful after stealing Xavier's brain and gaining his immense psionic power. Super comics, I know, stealing someone's brain, but here we are. So there was a lot of tension between these two women, but Rogue ultimately did decide to stay on the team. Now, not because Wanda asked her to though, and because she wanted to move on, but because she knew it would be what Professor X would have wanted, and because she basically didn't trust Wanda or her powers and wanted to stick around to keep an eye on her and to prevent her from making a giant mess of this whole situation, which she felt was all Wanda really knew how to do. Ouch. Poor Wanda, she can never catch a break. Number 3. Storm. Storm actually joined up after my number 2 was on the team. We'll talk about them in a minute, no spoilers, but see if you can guess based on this timing who is going to be next. Storm ended up joining during Bendis' run on Avengers in 2012 in issue 19 on that run. She was actually recommended to the team when Captain America attempted to re-recruit Black Panther. Now Black Panther said he just wasn't interested at the time, he just wasn't feeling it, and when Cap explained his reason for needing Black Panther as wanting friendly faces, T'Challa told him that what he thought the team needed actually was just more firepower. What Cap needed in his opinion was his wife. Storm. And so Storm answered the call, ended up joining the team for a time. She was even prominently featured on the cover for issue 21. I love this cover, it's just so cool. I think Storm should be on every team. Storm should lead every team, that's what I think. Number 2, Wolverine. Wolverine has been part of both the main Avengers team and the Avengers Unity division. Being as popular as a member of the X-Men as he is, I'm actually surprised it took Marvel as long as it did to include him on the team after the Avengers became this sort of ever-expanding team that just so many branches and card-carrying former members as well as rotating members and honorary members. It just has become there's a lot of Avengers. Wolverine was invited to officially join the Avengers in the 2005 New Avengers series in issue number 6, after Cap and Iron Man had a brief discussion about whether or not Wolverine would be a suitable pick for the team. Steve was concerned that Wolverine was a murderer and therefore not suited, but Tony insisted, saying that he was their missing ingredient, the thing that their new team needed. And also he was like, he's not a murderer, he's a samurai. Or maybe a murderer and a samurai. I think you can be both. I don't know, can you be both? Is that dishonorable? Apologies to any samurai watching this. Number 1, Beast. We've seen Beast featured on the Secret Avengers team, but like me, you may have forgotten that he is essentially a core member of the Avengers, first becoming a probationary member in the Avengers Volume 1 in issue 137, and then gaining full membership in issue 151. Beast was likely the first X-Men member to become a full member of the main team, and although I tend to forget about it because he goes just so far back, he's essentially a core member, or he was a core member for quite a while. If you're wondering how exactly Beast ended up on the Avengers team when the X-Men and Hank's ties to them are so prominent, it was actually just some good timing in terms of what was going on in the comics. X-Men's original run actually ended in 1970 due to the series being cancelled. X-Men would return, but not until the mid-70s. Issue 137 of the Avengers, featuring Beast as a new member on probation, came out in July of 1975. For Hank, this was just after he'd been transformed into the big, bouncing blue beast that we have come to love today. X-Men returned a few months later in August, with Chris Claremont starting his run in issue 94 of X-Men. In other words, the X-Men team being defunct provided some freedom for Beast to join the Avengers, and writers kinda just liked the idea of him working on the team and probably just also loved his look, so it happened. And there was no X-Men at the time, so it made sense.